Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you guys for joining me. Happy Friday. Thanks for the patience. Internet's being a little wonky. We're here live on January 24th, 2025, and we are doing astrology readings. If you guys can see me, give me a thumbs up, like the stream, consider sharing this with other people. And make sure you click the subscription button below. Click the bell button so you're alerted as to when I'm on. I'm here every Friday doing either live tarot or astrology readings, but you can catch me here on my other videos on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. How's it going, guys? You know, number one, we're a little early, so the next lunation that we're going to have is actually going to be the new moon in Aquarius coming up here in this next week, so it's kind of catching us in between lives. But if you have questions about the new moon in Aquarius, I'm happy to answer them for you. Or if you have questions about a natal aspect in your chart or a transit, maybe even a synastry reading, I'm your girl. To get a reading, scan the QR code right here, and by scanning that, it's going to take you to my PayPal. I need some important details from you in order to do your reading. I need to know your time, date, and location of birth. Please spell out the month, give me the AM and the PM, whichever one it is, and also your question in the memo box. Or we can also take payment through the super chat with YouTube. How's everybody doing? We've got a number of people who are already here. Lisa's here, Marissa's here. We've got Dorothy. What's up, Dorothy? Hey, Lisa. How's everybody doing? Sonia's here. Hey, Penny. Where are you guys tuning in from? We've got Montana here. What's up, Soul Love? Hey, Moonchild. Yes, if I wanted to do a solar return, I don't do like full-blown solar return readings. We only do like transits. Sometimes I'll look at lunar returns, but I don't do solar returns because they're a little bit more involved. What's up, Anne? I did get your email, so I can send you back the $5 you sent me. I've got your email and your question, so thanks for sending it. What's up, Ida? Ida's watching from Sweden. Oh my goodness, guys, the It's astroing, and I am here in Texas. It is cold here, so I'm tuning in live, obviously, wearing my hoodie, so don't mind me. I'm a little bit more casual today. So we're going to be doing readings. We have names going across the screen, so if you see your name, that means you're already on the list. At some point, I'm going to have to go through and add more charts when we have people that come in, but everybody who's already gotten in, I've got you. So far I've got Angie, Lisa, Dorothy, Tonga, Marissa, Maritza, Amanda, and Jennifer. So if you hear your name, I've got you. Yes, so I am booking in May. My openings start in April and May. So for clients who want to book one-on-one readings, you can book an appointment that's available, and then I can add you to a wait list. So if something opens up, if somebody reschedules, I do have like a running wait list. So I will contact people and I can get them in sooner. But I'm a busy lady. I'm shooting 4 videos a week. So I've got 2 days a week that I'm doing readings right now. But I also offer reports. So if you have like a 1 or a 3 question, I can send you an emailed report usually within about 10 business days. So hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully I can help you with that. I can definitely talk to you about that in an email report, but it would be an audio file. What's up, Red Druidess? How's everybody doing? All right, so if you see your name, I've got you. If you want to get in the queue, scan the QR code. We'll let you know how long when we call last call. You know, that's when you want to get in. Otherwise, I'll catch you next week. And we're going to jump right into it. So we're going to start actually with Anne and Lisa and Dorothy. You guys are my level 3 members. So if you guys are not level 3, you can join a level 3 membership. It supports me as a full-time content creator. You get a shout out at the beginning of the month, and you're going to get a reading with me once a month. So I'm here pretty much almost every Friday for the most part. And I'm excited to be able to talk to you guys. Thank you guys for being level 3 members. So let's see what Anne has to say. She sent me a little love note. Well, thank you very much for your kind words. You want me to look at the chart for January 25th through the 27th. And there is a massive grand trine around your 23-degree earth signs. You want to know what in your chart lines up perfectly with Uranus, the trines to Capricorn, and opposing Mars transit. So your question with all this alignment after the Sun-Pluto conjunction, you had at 1 of Aquarius and it was squaring your Sun. The synchronicities for Pisces right now, hello, Venus and Neptune coming to the nodes. So your question is, You've experienced so much indecisiveness in your marriage, whether you stay or you go, revolving around issues of communication and loving within it. My Scorpio stellium, Cap rising husband who's younger than you. Do I see the trine helping you to end that cycle? You're really working on not being critical and being at peace. Being at peace, bringing a wife and a loving example for him in your marriage. All right, so let's take a look at what you got going on. So you want me to look at the 25th through the 27th. And it sounds like you were talking about all the Uranus trines. So we have got Uranus that is going to go direct this month. You're going to see that kind of later at the end of the month, right after the new moon. And it looks like it is trining your Mars, just like you said, and Mercury's there as well. And I think a lot of the challenge Uranus trines shake things up, right? So when we look at Uranus coming retrograde into conjunction with your Saturn, that's a pretty big transit. If you have an outer planet transiting your chart ruler, it basically means you start behaving differently, right? So the way you act, the way you carry yourself. Obviously, Saturn is about restriction, so it can talk about where you feel blocked or where there's boundaries or where there's karma. Think of Uranus coming in as shaking that all up, right? So off the bat, just looking at Uranus conjunct Saturn, I go, well, you need more fun. You need more spontaneity. You need more date nights. You need more playtime. You need opportunities to kind of break out of the limitation that Saturn has in Taurus in your 5th house, and that might mean that you're not as willing to take risks when it comes to love. Obviously, Uranus can be about divorce and separation. It is sextiling Mars retrograde in your 7th, so I could see that you're like, okay, I'm not really feeling loved, or I'm not really feeling like I'm getting a lot of romance or affection. Obviously, Taurus can be about that. And simultaneously, it's trining your Mars. So it is going to be bringing up some tension maybe in relationships, but trines are actually positive. It's like, well, what can I change? What can I organize in terms of making time for date night and having time, for better intimacy and connection and being able to kind of be together. So I don't see the trine necessarily as a bad thing. And then you've got Uranus that's also trining your Pluto, and you're going to be kind of dealing with that off and on for the better part of like the next year. And this is actually, I think, a good thing. Something that's changing about your self-esteem, what you're investing in, your finances, and also like your beliefs. So I don't really see these transits as being things that are going to impact your relationships. Maybe love and how you receive love and how you feel, sure. But your marriage is going to be more connected to your moon. So transits in the 7th house, like Mars retrograde, which is going to be playing out really through like the 3rd week of February, is saying, what direction am I going in my relationship? And I feel like Mars retrograde in Cancer, because it started when the North Node was in Aries, it's like, well, what have we always done, or how have things been, or what's been going on in regards to my home life and my relationship with my partner and what we're doing at home, and how can I learn to kind of redirection my marriage and look at what's happened in the past? Or maybe it can be about making up for past time. It can also be about dealing with issues that's connected to the past where there's been frustration, and like reconcile, right? I think, especially because look, Mars has been trining your moon, which is your ruler of the 7th house. So this is like through, 2nd house could be gifts. It could be through feeling like somebody's making more of an effort, or maybe making more of an effort to communicate better. It's your whole sign 3rd house. And also Mars has been trining your Venus, right? So that's not bad. That's about learning to be more patient, kind, compassionate, things that you said that you're trying to do, being more loving. I think some of the challenges stem from the fact that Saturn has been in conjunction to your moon. So you personally are feeling maybe a little disconnected, or you're feeling maybe like it's difficult to communicate or express your emotions when it comes to your partnership and your marriage. But it looks like if your partner is kind of focusing more on you and redirecting their energy, you guys could have better communication and things could improve. Your Saturn, your partner is the moon. So Saturn and the moon coming into conjunction, is actually about this merging of like, how can we be more aware? How can we maybe make more opportunities for time together and make sacrifices personally to kind of better our relationship and our home dynamic, right? The moon. Now, Neptune is hanging out around your Venus too. And so that will also bring up challenges revolving around, do I feel loved? Am I getting what I need? Am I being seen? And Saturn's coming in for the conjunction with your moon and Venus. And you're going to be dealing with the Saturn Venus conjunction pretty much off and on all year. So Saturn and Neptune are going to kind of dance in and out of Pisces and Aries. Whole sign third house, communication, journaling, short distance trips. To be honest with you, you know, my remedy for this with Saturn hitting the moon and Venus is I'd be like, you guys need to actually like go away together. You guys need to go on like a staycation or maybe a weekend away, go on a road trip somewhere near water. It'd be good also to be like listening to music together, watching movies together, going for walks together, and maybe reading together. That could be something else that you guys could be doing that could kind of bring you together more emotionally. Maybe you guys both get a copy of the same book and you guys both read and you can kind of converse, or you can read it together at night in bed, Pisces. Or, you know, have like a podcast or something that you're following, or a TV show, something that you do that you watch, or that's like artistic, or something about travel or movement, which could bring you guys closer together. Yeah, the Saturn moon transit's not fun. You know, it doesn't matter what sign it's in, and then it's a double whammy because it's also hitting your Venus. Now, Saturn is going to continue to make aspects to Mars, which is really going to be like up until about the end of March. And it looks like you're going to be having Venus and Mercury retrograding over your moon. So if you're spending more time doing the stuff that I've mentioned, like February through April, that can give you an opportunity to do things a little differently, see if things improve. And to be honest with you, I think with Saturn coming off of your moon after this transit in the spring and Jupiter going into your 7th house, I think that your relationship and your marriage will improve. Jupiter will be exalted in Cancer, so there could be more opportunity for peace, love, better kind of home dynamic situations. Right before that happens, Jupiter is going to hit Juno, which is going to improve marital relations. And the North Node is going to be on your moon, which means you guys are actually communicating better. And I feel like there's a very significant turning point that happens when the North Node's conjunct the moon, right? Especially like you guys, when Jupiter goes into Cancer, all of this like North Node in Pisces, Saturn and Neptune going into Pisces, I think it's going to be a lot easier to manage, because not only will it be trining, but it's also Jupiter is the dispositor of planets in Pisces. So you guys will be like, this is nice. We should actually like maybe go on a road trip every, 3-6 months, whatever. Or we have, standing date nights, or, we make a point of getting out and kind of, going on walks together. And I think it'll improve your relationship. I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be negative. Believe it or not, marriages really end, in my opinion, in the 6th house, because it's 12th house to the 7th. So it's about some kind of conclusion or completion. So unless you're having like a really challenging or negative aspect that's going on with your Mercury, maybe, and of course I'm eyeballing that you've had eclipses conjunct Mercury, the last 2 years. You also have Chiron transiting your Mercury, and your Mercury is retrograde. So does that mean that I think that there's going to be a separation? No, I don't. And I feel like because you have Venus and the moon in conjunction in Pisces, and Venus is exalted, this does not read to me like a chart where there's a divorce that's glaringly obvious. If anything, I think that in the sextile to Saturn means as long as you guys keep the love alive and there is some sense of feeling like wanted and needed and appreciated, valued, right? Saturn in Taurus, then things can definitely get better. So I would really do this February through April, and then I think you're going to see the benefits of some of these changes coming through for you in May, June, July. Okay? So hopefully that's helpful in giving you some insight. Obviously, come back at some point. We can always look at your guys' synastry, and we can see what's kind of going on with your synastry, or even your composite chart, if that's something that interests you. You may want to learn about transit Saturn and Neptune square your Juno. I think that's part of what's going on here as well, that there could be some issues where you're not really communicating very well or seeing very clearly, and people can be making assumptions that people are thinking or feeling a certain way, and it can create some confusion. But that also is going to be over later this year. Okay. What's up to everybody who's coming through? Yeah, you guys are going to hear so much about relationship challenges over the next couple of months. Like if you guys thought the South Node in Libra was something, wait. Now the South Node's in Virgo. So now you are going to see people actually go through divorces, and also we're going to have a Venus retrograde. Venus is kind of dancing with Saturn and Neptune right now. So things are kind of dissolving, and a lot of things are very karmic. And Saturn and Neptune are going into Aries. So you're gonna see a lot of people be like, if I feel alone, I might as well be alone, you know? But like somebody was saying in the chat, everybody goes through cycles, especially with marriage. So I hope that that's helpful for you, and keep us updated. Let us know what happens. We've got Lisa and then Dorothy. Make sure this is the right Lisa. Yeah. What's up, Lisa? Did you have a birthday? Oh, David's here. Hey, David. Hey, Robbie. How are you guys? Lisa. All right. So, hi, Candace. Cashing in, please. Anything in particular you want to know, Lisa? Happy belated. I'm just playing catch up here. Hey, Candace. Rough week, car troubles, work block. Can you tell me what's challenging and supporting, what I can do to work through it? Sasha agreed with me. All right, so I would imagine, let's put the transits where they are now. Let's see, sun transits. Yeah, I mean, girl, looks like you've been, work-wise, this has been colorful, right? So you're Leo rising, so your chart ruled by the sun. So obviously, sun conjunct Pluto recently has probably brought some challenges in terms of dealing with relationships. Looks like that's still in your 6th house. So it looks like it could have been with like coworkers and like working relationships and like working through some ego issues and challenges, and you've had Mercury dancing on your sun, so there's been a need to be like very communicative and like focusing on, okay, this is how I get the point across. But there's been some people that have been causing some issues. Sun Pluto in the 6th is like, you know, problems with coworkers and people who are being kind of two-faced or difficult, and yeah. Oh boy, lost it. And with Mars retrograde in your 12th house, there is this feeling for a lot of Leo risings that they're like, I just need to retreat. I need a break. You know, I really need to like pull back, or I feel like I need more sleep. I need to be keeping to myself, working through my emotions in a private way. I think the good news, to be honest with you, is that, you know, Mars right now is moving out of the opposition with your sun. So a lot of this could be just honestly crankiness and not getting enough rest. Mars in opposition to the sun is definitely a challenging transit because you feel like there are things outside of you that you just have no control over, and people who are being passive aggressive or kind of moody. It will come back into opposition again, but it's fading now with the retrograde, so you're going to get a reprieve. The good news is this. Look, you got a really nice new moon coming in your 7th. And this new moon is obviously bringing the themes up of new phases, new starts in relationships. 7th house isn't just romantic relationships. It's your relationships with one-on-one people. It's with, you know, managers. It's with friends. It can be with romantic partners. And this is probably one of the better new moons all year. I like this one. I like the new moon in Cancer. Probably because it trines Jupiter. Okay, so when you have a new moon in the 7th house, it's like the way that I'm going to do relationships is different now, right? And this new moon is right on top of your Mercury, so it's going to be highlighting themes of communication, and it's also going to be right on top of your Venus. So whole sign Venus, you know, is connected to your 10th house of work, so it's like you going like, all right, let's just hit restart. I'm going to focus on trying to have or bettering relationships with others. I'm going to hear what they have to say, Mercury, but at the same time, you know, you're focusing on what's best for the team, or what's best for the group, or what's best for the company or the department that you're working with. And like the trines to Jupiter in the 11th house is like about engaging in meetings and better communication spaces and like really trying to kind of meet group goals. So if you're trying to negotiate, if you're trying to negotiate things, I think it can be good for you, especially because, you know, Mercury is involved, not only transit Mercury, but your natal Mercury. So you're best off asking for that after this new moon. And I think a lot of it's also going to be how you're working with other people. Okay, so something like that about your feedback you're getting from others, if other people are, you know, speaking highly of you and positive remarks in regards to working as a team and like what you bring to the table. I also think that, you know, when the sun trines Jupiter, that's a good one too. So you're going to see, you're going to see just shortly after that, then the sun's going to come into a trine with Jupiter as well. That's gonna be like the 30th and the 31st. So after that new moon, I do think that things will improve. What you're probably gonna wanna watch for is gonna be down the road, when Uranus trines your sun, and this will also make changes at work and in regards to your office space and your schedule. That looks like that might be happening kind of like in March. You're finalizing the Uranus trine the sun. And then you're going to have Mars come back into an opposition with your sun. So, you know, if you've been feeling kind of burnt out and exhausted recently, could be the Mars retrograde, but I think it's been Mars in opposition to your sun. So this will kind of come back. There might be a little static going on around the beginning of April. Okay, so you want to watch that. And then that's the final opposition, at least to your sun. And then you're going to have another wave of this when Mars is coming into opposition with Pluto. And that'll be taking place pretty much the end of April. So it's looking like maybe say the 22nd, 23rd until Mars comes off of your ascendant. And probably end of April going into May, you're going to be feeling like you have more energy, you can get more stuff done, you're going to feel like you're kind of back in action. I had to tell all my Leo risings, like, you guys really need to just unwind. And you might feel like, oh, but I'm not getting any work done, or I'm not making any headway, or, you know, whatever. But I'm telling you, with Mars retrograde in the 12th house, especially in your case, because it rules your 10th house, this is bringing up where there is like issues and hidden enemies with people at work. So there are things or forces that are kind of like working against you. No, things will actually, I mean, the next like week or so is really great for bettering relationships and communication. You're just going to get hit a little bit at the end of April going in the beginning of May, and then it's going to kind of chill out a little bit. You've also got some other nice things that are kind of going on. I mean, you've got North Node that's going to, you know, start coming into conjunction with Jupiter, which is good for making more money. You've got Uranus that's trining your sun. That's good for making more money. And then that new moon, I mean, I would use a new moon in my 7th house conjunct my 2nd house Lord to be like, hi, I want to raise. You know, I would literally be doing it within 72 hours of the new moon, because you have some of the best aspects right at the end of January going to the beginning of February, right? And I'm liking also, just if you're talking about raises and stuff down the road, when you have this eclipse in September, it's right on your Jupiter in opposition to the Sun and Mercury. So it does look like there is some kind of fulfillment at least, if not by then, around then in September when you have a eclipse conjunct Jupiter. So it's looking pretty good on the financial department. Okay. Good luck. Hang in there. I feel for all my Leo risings right now. You guys feel like the world's kind of against you, but you just gotta turn within right now. All right, we got Dorothy. What's up, Dorothy? What's going on? Oh, perfect. That's a great time. A stock buyout with an eclipse on your Jupiter in the 8th. Definitely hold on until then. All right, let's see what Dorothy has to say. Thanks so much. There's so much I want to ask intuitively. I'm curious about the transit Saturn and Pisces square my Mars, and transit Uranus in Taurus. Okay. Let's see. So Uranus is still conjunct your Mars, but you're almost done. I would just watch when Uranus goes direct at the end of the month. That's going to be colorful. We'll talk about that in a second. And then you also are concerned about what? Saturn and Pisces square your Mars. Saturn in Pisces is going to sextile your Mars, which is a good thing. Saturn is going to technically move into your 11th. So, you know, I use Placidus. I don't use whole sign when I work with clients one-on-one. So if we look at Saturn leaving your moon, which is going to be good, and we look at Saturn starting to come into a sextile with your Mars, it's also sextiling Uranus. So what is Saturn going to do? It's going to stabilize. This might bring good things for your career, especially when it comes to like working with groups, or, you know, making new friends, or being kind of, you know, connected to your community. And then when we look at Saturn sextiling, what this is going to do with Uranus is it means that it's going to bring opportunity for intuition, problem solving. To me, this seems more like unexpected things happening behind the scenes relating to work, because Uranus is connected to your Placidus 10th house. So it might be that you're like, okay, there's changes coming within the business, but like these are good changes. And you'll see that so much of March and April with like Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde in the 11th, that it is really amplifying the need to be involved with working with teams, okay, or some kind of, group dynamics that are coming up, or that you're working with some professional networking, or maybe you're joining an association. That can kind of happen as well. But yeah, Saturn sextile your Mars is not a bad thing, especially, I mean, maybe it's harder for you because Mars is intercepted in your 11th house, because of the connection to Aries, but Mars is also connected to your coworkers. So seeing Saturn sextile Mars means that maybe you're going to be like, hey, there's actually the fine tuning that's going on at work, and like there's better opportunities to kind of connect and collaborate with people, and that, reconnecting or having more frequent meetings or making changes revolving around the company goals is actually going to bring like less issues, less breakdown of communication, less problems. 12th house is, hidden enemies. And because Mars is involved with the North Node, I'm going to tell you, if you look at your Mars and your Venus, they have mutual reception. Venus in a Martian sign, Mars in a Venusian sign. You're not at work to make friends, girl. Okay, you are not at work to make friends. You will see this throughout this transit with Uranus in your 12th on top of your Mars. It's almost done. Actually, we're going to see Uranus is about to go direct. So I would be more, not concerned, but I would be more focused on that, knowing that it's going to go direct right on your natal Mars. So that's going to happen right around here, right after the new moon. So like the 29th, the 30th, Uranus wakes up and it's coming online. And also Mars can be about health matters, especially things connecting to cuts, burns, bruises, accidents, and issues pertaining to the throat, the thyroid, that kind of stuff can kind of come up. And right after it conjuncts Mars, it's going to start opposing Saturn. And Saturn is going to be dealing with budgeting, savings, borrowing, loans. And obviously in the 12th house, it's saying, okay, unexpected financial changes or physical changes or unexpected challenges that's, connected to your Saturn in the 6th. Having South Node in the 6th and also Saturn in the 6th is also another indication that there's some challenges or issues with coworkers, especially because this is ruled by Mars and you have Mars in the 12th. Have you had a tendency of having problems or issues revolving around like people at work? Has that like been a theme for you? Or have you noticed that there's been problems with like maintaining, adequate working conditions, or that there's been some breakdown of responsibility at work or anything like that? Because I feel like the Saturn transit on your moon talks about the same thing, that there's either been challenges, connecting with women at work, or that there's been some limitation in kind of connection with females at work, or like with leadership, and it's probably felt really heavy. So don't worry about Saturn sextile Mars. Worry more about Uranus on top of your Mars and transit Uranus opposing your Saturn. And when it opposes, it's going to be in a money sign, or a money degree, I guess I should say. It's in a money sign, Taurus, but it's going to be in a money degree. So right here, like right around the beginning of May, and the 12th house is collective energies. So I feel like with Uranus in the 12th house, like there's something going on globally that's impacting energy, finances, money, resources, food, like that kind of stuff. That's having an impact on your work, your routine, your office space. I'm in public health, a little worried about funding. It should be good for a few years. I do think that you may hear more about funding stuff with Uranus in opposition to Saturn, because Saturn is about leadership and it is about bosses and governments. And so this can be saying there's collective movements to make changes with food, and also more like herbal stuff, supplements, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, any which way you slice it, being a Gemini rising with the North Node in the 10th house whole sign and retrogrades and eclipses, buckle up, because March and April, you're going to hear that there is going to be a lot of swift changes that are going to be happening for you at work. It doesn't mean that something is going to end. Actually, I think if something were going to end, you would have to see something kind of happening, maybe with, Pluto coming into conjunction with Jupiter in a couple of years or anything like that. But Gemini risings actually have a pretty good horoscope with the North Node and Saturn and eclipses in your 10th house. If anything changes work-wise, or you get relocated, or you're moved to another department, or a boss steps down or whatever, in 6 months' time, when you have the next eclipse in Pisces, it's going to be trine Jupiter, right? And Jupiter will be in your money house. So actually job changes or shifts should be welcomed. And you'll see this here with this eclipse trining Jupiter in your second. And that eclipse is going to be right on your moon, right? Second house ruler. To me, this is saying higher position, making more money, you know, getting a better or higher status, you know, getting more recognition for the work that you're doing. And I think it's going to be really good for Gemini risings financially. So you're just going to have to kind of weather the storm a little bit in the spring, but then things are going to kind of improve, especially as the year goes on. I mean, this seems to be like the general consensus for the astrology in general, but especially for Pisces, right? For Virgo, for Gemini risings with Pisces placements in the fall. Anyway, hope that's helpful. You're welcome. All right, so those were my level 3 people. Thank you guys. I've got Tonga, Marissa, and Maritza. Let me see, did anybody else pop in here? Come on, PayPal, get it together. The bane of my existence, this freaking website, I swear. All right. Let's see, who else did we get in here? So we had Jennifer, Tria, Gabriella, Sage Moon, all here, and I got another one from Jen. All right, cool. So let's go on with my list. I'll update those in a little bit. We're gonna do Tonga, and then Marissa, and then Maritza. Marissa, and then Maritza. What's up, Rome? I don't have my phone on me for my Venmo. I haven't really taken those in a while. Let's see. So let's pull up Tonga. And Tonga, I got your email. Let me pull up your question too. I'd like to hear your take on my natal trine between Pluto, Mercury, and the moon, and how the new moon could be used for 5th and 8th house matters. I work from home in healthcare and receive 1099 income, insurance payments as income, and I am a solopreneur, so my income is also related to the 5th and the 11th house, but I also enjoy playing small games of chance. All right, so let's see. So we want to look at the trine between Pluto, Mercury, and the moon. Let's just look at that before we put the transits up there. There we go. All right, so we've got natal Pluto that is in Libra in your 8th. We have got your moon in Gemini in the 5th. And we've got Mercury in the 1st in Aquarius. So first things first, obviously games of chance, risk, speculative, even self-employment, right? That is going to be the 5th house. It doesn't matter what the sign is, that's what the 5th house is. So if you have the moon there, that means that that's where there's going to be a little bit more action. And actually, like, the moon is connected to relationships. So this could mean, you know, working with clients and like your marketplace. So that's another way of looking at it. That part of your taking a risk is like, you know, working with people and being self-employed, and also doing some kind of self-employment work where you're taking clients from home, right? Because here's the home, 4th house, and it's second to the 4th house. So this is where you're making money and taking a chance. Now, moon trine Pluto is a really nice aspect. An air trine in general is going to be more intellectual, information, communication based. It's also going to be very social. So when you have your moon trine Pluto, of course you do something where you offer some kind of services that's connected to insurance. Insurance is the 8th house. So part of your speculative stuff is like, okay, I can play games of chance, I can gamble, I can play the lottery, whatever, and, you know, maybe I will get lucky and I'll make some funds. But I think that this is actually really strong for some kind of self-employment insurance-based setup, especially at an 8. So that's dealing not only with other people's money, but it's like how you can offer them services, Libra, and help them kind of protect themselves, right? So I like that. And then we've got the moon that trines Mercury, which is your 8th house lord, which is doubling down on insurance, investments, but it's also connected to Gemini. So that's going to bring us back to self-employment. So even having like the 5th house ruler in the first, in Aquarius, it is intercepted. So maybe it's like a little bit challenging, or it has been challenging figuring out how to kind of get things going on your own. Communication is strong with Mercury in Aquarius, even if it's retrograde, because you're able to have access to insurance, investments. You're able to see patterns in other things and ways to be able to kind of improve health through communications. And that trines Pluto, which gives you access to other people's money. And Mercury trining the moon is about you kind of having your own business that's based off of being able to cater to other people. So it's like, it's kind of like across the board, right? And the dispositor of your moon is Mercury. So I like that as well. It's a pretty tight trine between Mercury and Pluto. It's not as tight with the moon, but it's within 10 degrees, so it's there. The other thing that's interesting is your 10th house lord is Pluto, and it's in the 8th. So that's about anything about other people's resources, money, insurance. And then the other lord is Mars, but Mars is in the 12th house. So, you know, working privately, maybe doing something for yourself, I could see that as well. I would say for me, this is great for somebody who wants to do speculative work, or if they want to, you know, crunch numbers, or if they want to play games of chance. Especially, I have found that Mercury retrograde, if it rules your 5th and it's in the 1st, like the feeling has to be there. You have to be like, oh, I feel lucky, or I feel like getting a lottery ticket, or I feel like going to the casino, or I feel like this stock is gonna, like, you know, pay off. Like there has to be something there where the feeling has to be there. And it has to be instinctual and intuitive if it's retrograde. So I would not ever make investments or do things or gamble or anything, like, unless you feel, you know, very strongly that, yes, you know, I think I'm going to actually be able to make something out of this. And you'll do your research too, because Mercury is connected to the 8th house. It also means that, you know, your hobbies might be things that involve education or research, or something revolving around you know, metaphysics, obviously, you know, connecting to the 8th house lord in the 1st. Let's see, am I missing anything? I think the other thing that's worth mentioning is that even your whole sign 2nd house, Aquarius, the ruler or the dispositor of that would be Uranus, and you have Uranus in Scorpio, which is like, you know, being in the business of insurance or working with other people's money or investing. It's probably pretty interesting right now having Pluto coming up on your Mercury, which is going to get you thinking more about investment strategy or changes, or the future of what's going to happen with, you know, crypto, or the future of what's going to happen with insurance, and how that's going to kind of be all upgraded. And while it's coming into conjunction with your Mercury, it's also in a square with Uranus. So to me, this reads as if like, oh, my financial goals are changing. You know, now I'm thinking more as Pluto's coming into connection with Mercury, trining the South Node, that you're like, well, maybe I'm going to go back to some kind of gambling or speculative stuff, or maybe I'm going to, you know, take my chance at expanding my personal business. Even though you're a Capricorn, you're a late degree Capricorn. So if you've been watching the Mars retrograde, a lot of the retrograde has actually been taking place in your 6th house. So it's, how can I change and strategize and like work differently? And like, how can I find ways to be able to kind of streamline my work and also improve my schedule and my health, so I have time to do the things that I want to do, right? Always watch what's going on with your Mars and your Pluto transits to kind of see what's happening with work. But certainly that Mercury conjunct Pluto square Uranus is going to do that for the next couple of years. You may have a lucky run here. You know, Jupiter is your Placidus ruler of money. And you have Saturn coming into conjunction with Jupiter and Venus. So it can actually bring you some kind of wealth or riches, especially if you've been working hard as a self-employed person. And you're going to see Jupiter continue to dance in your 5th house. So I think that'll actually potentially bring you a nice kind of run here. You might find that with Jupiter waking up and hitting your moon, it'll increase business, and you'll see business improve, especially in March. And then you're going to see an eclipse that's also going to be happening in your 8th house right here with the ruler in your 2nd. And it looks like Mercury and Venus are going to retrograde over your Jupiter. So you might actually have a nice little cash out that's going to be coming like March and April. You might have like a surplus of like clients or potential people that you're going to be working with. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Certainly the South Node mood is interesting as well. I mean, you didn't ask about that, but everybody who I've met who has that connection, they have really strong like mood shifts and changes, right? South Node moon. And this means that there's a constant fluctuation and change happening with relationships. So to stabilize personal relationships, having a client-based business is good if you're constantly working with different people and that's kind of changing. Or maybe you're going to diversify the type of insurance maybe that you're selling with Jupiter hitting the moon. I wonder if there's going to be other insurances you'd consider getting involved in. If you do health insurance, do you do life insurance, right? Or are you doing some other kind of professional insurance? Or are you considering getting involved in, you know, property insurance or offering insurance to businesses or like companies? You know, that could be something else that would come up. Hopefully that's helpful for you guys. I'll give you guys a rundown of who got in. We're going to leave the queue open for a little bit longer. I got Rome, Matthew, and Megan, and Gabriella. So if you heard your name, I've got you. All right, so we're going to now go to Marissa, and then we have Maritza and Amanda. So Marissa, there we go. What's up, Marissa? All right, let's check this out. There we go. Marissa says, hey Candace, I can't catch the live because I'm at work, but you're born on December 5th, 84, and you want me to look at cruise. I need help navigating my love life. My partner and I have been taking a break since his move. We're on good terms. I'm feeling very confused and sad. I don't know if I should continue to pursue things with him or if there's someone else better suited for me in the long term. All right, well, let's see what you got going on here. So just looking at your chart, Cancer rising, Sun in Sag, and your moon is in Taurus. So Saturn rules your relationships. And what's going on with your natal Saturn right now? All right, so Uranus has been in opposition to Saturn, so that could mean there's been some changes happening and there's been some space maybe from a partnership or a relationship. You also are a Cancer rising, so you have had Mars retrograde in your first during this Capricorn season where there's been oppositions to the 7th, where you've maybe been in your feelings a little bit, kind of thinking about, you know, how you feel and whether or not, you know, you guys are going to be able to come together. I would watch because Venus is going to be kind of dancing with Saturn and she's going to retrograde back. I feel like for you, this is going to determine whether or not there's going to be like a turning point just in relationships in general. And speaking from this perspective of Sag Sun, you know, Sagittarius suns have had Jupiter in their 7th house, which means there's a partner who's there. But intermittently, you know, August and December, you saw squares to Saturn, and the 10th house represents other people's home or the home of a partner, right? Or your partner's family. So being that Saturn's been in your 10th, squaring Jupiter and also squaring your sun means that, you know, you've got a partner that's moved. There's going to be maybe some reevaluation of the living situation or, you know, what you guys are going to be doing or whether or not he's going to be living there permanently, kind of working some of that stuff out in the springtime. So let's take a look and let's see if we put your buddy here, who I have January 10th, 75 at 10:35 a.m. in San Diego. What's going on? So he is an Aries rising and he's got Sun and Moon in Capricorn. All right, so Mars has been retrograde in his 4th. So there has been this reevaluation, figuring out a home, a move, you know, kind of maybe keeping to himself a little bit more. And this looks a little tricky in this chart because it's been really close to his Saturn. So did he move for work maybe? And while that's been retrograde, it's been in opposition to his 10th house planets. Now, he's had South Node eclipses going on, you know, the last like year and a half in Libra. So that would have been enough to kind of knock a relationship around. And Pluto is now creeping up on his Mercury and his Venus. Pluto will get up to about 3 degrees this year. So Because it's hitting Mercury, it means it's going to impact the way that he's thinking or communicating, especially when it comes to his work and his schedule and his routine. And like, it is a pretty significant transit in terms of like changing the way he communicates with others. And as it creeps up on his Venus, which will be more so next year, it could represent a total transformation of a relationship, okay? One thing I just think about for Aries risings is that in the next couple of months, we're going to see like a Mercury retrograde and a Venus retrograde on their ascendant. And that could quite literally materialize as like a partner reconnecting with him and being like, hey, what are we doing? Like, can I see you? Are we getting back together? You know, and I see that happening in his chart in March. I am of the frame of mind with the Venus retrograde that Venus retrograde in general is challenging. Okay, we can undo, go back, reevaluate, sometimes reconnect. But in the sign of Aries, people are going to be acting very selfishly, and people are going to realize and learn that if you're acting selfishly in love, you're going to wind up alone. And when it retrogrades with Mercury, people are going to be changing their mind a little bit. And some people will fight for what they love. I think that Aries risings actually have a really good transit where it's like people are going to reach back out to them or come back to them and say, I want to see you, or I miss you, or I love you, or whatever, to try to, you know, reconcile. And while this is all going on, the ruler or the dispositor of all this Aries is Mars, and Mars is direct in the 4th house, which means most likely, if you guys really do decide to make this relationship work, somebody is possibly going to have to move. There's going to have to be some kind of a change happening here. And if you look at his chart, his Venus natally in Aquarius trines Pluto. So he's willing to make changes for relationships. I do feel like, you know, a Venus-Pluto transit over the next year, more so 2026, is going to be a pretty significant change. So, you know, I wonder who's going to move. That's kind of the theme here. He's also in his Chiron return, so that's uncomfortable. You know, he's going through some big changes in regards to being on his own, taking care of himself, and working through what might feel like a little bit of like a hermit phase, right? And then your guys' charts together, like with this synastry, you know, do I think that it's necessarily a bad match? Well, let's take a look. So we have got, looking at his chart, your Juno sits in his 7th house, which is good for partnership. You guys have a North Node Sun, but also a North Node Neptune. You got Mercury conjunct the Moon, good for communication. You got Mars and Venus in close contact, and your Lilith is on his ascendant. So it's kind of hard to leave each other alone with some of these aspects. And when we flip this around and I look at your chart with his, Sun conjunct Jupiter in your 7th, I like that. His Venus and Mercury in your 8th, I feel like this is about really learning to kind of be more clear and transparent about your guys' feelings and also like resources of some kind. But his Jupiter and his Juno are pretty close to your midheaven. You guys have some significant like Juno contacts. Do I think somebody else better can come? I mean, I like when somebody has their Sun conjunct a 7th house Jupiter. I like that a lot. That can be good for relationships. What I'm not crazy about is the amount of 6th house planets there are, but you have a lot of 6th house planets too, but his planets all kind of land in your 6th, which it feels like work, right? It feels challenging. In general, you know, your Venus and your Mars, they do see each other. You guys have a Venus-Mars conjunction here. And then his Venus looks like it does not quite sextile here. No, your Venus is not as well seen, but you guys do have a Venus-Mars conjunction. So, I mean, that does tell me that things can work. I feel like your Mercury retrograde on his moon means that you guys need to better kind of communicate and talk about some of the long-term plans when it comes to relationships, I think, and home, and you know what it is that you guys both want in the long term, because it's in Capricorn. It's not the worst astrology that I've seen in terms of synastry, but just looking at your transits alone without his chart, do I think that you're going to find someone? I mean, you need to see a strong Saturn transit. So I think looking at this chart, when Venus starts retrograding in conjunction with Saturn, there's going to be a definitive decision about what's going to happen. And look at this, it's happening in the 10th house. So I'm wondering, is he going to go, well, to make this work, would you move here? Or would you spend time here? Or, you know, would you consider being closer? That might happen. And I also think that the astrology for Sagittarius is going to get a lot easier and a lot better, especially in the summer of 2025, when Jupiter is no longer being squared by Saturn. So when we look at your natal Saturn placement, you know, Uranus in opposition to that is what's kind of creating some challenges. So once Uranus is no longer opposing, you don't have as much stress going on with your relationships. But in the long term, you know, 2025, 2026, Saturn and Neptune are squaring your Mercury, which means you're not going to want to feel like you're being led astray or that somebody's not giving you clarity or communicating about what they want. And I think you're going to see the writing on the wall March and April talking to him. And if you're not feeling like you're getting the feedback that you want, then, you know, I would say leave him alone and let him be alone for a little bit and recognize and realize that you tried to make that connection. If he's not trying to bridge the gaps in your guys' distance, then yeah, you will have the opportunity to meet another person. You could meet somebody while you're traveling. You could meet somebody at work because the retrogrades are actually in your 10th house Placidus. So there could be a change to your status or your relationships in that sense. And I don't think that there's anything bad in terms of your synastry, but knowing his personal transits and that he's going to go through like Saturn, Neptune on the ascendant, this is going to be like somebody who's suddenly going to be like, well, I'm more self-focused, or I'm focused on my goals or what I'm doing. There's not a lot of support going on with his Venus. Now it will sextile Venus, but that means that he's going to want a relationship with somebody who's going to understand his goals and his needs and, you know, be connected to his social circles. And so I think he's going to want to have somebody who's going to be closer to home, to be honest with you. Capricorns will have a good year in this next year too, with Jupiter going into their whole sign, you know, 7th house from their sun. But for him, it's going to be in the 4th. So I'm wondering what is the change that's going to be happening in regards to home and relationships and how that's going to be impacting his long-term relationships over the next 2 years. But you definitely have the chance to continue to meet people with Jupiter in opposition to your sun. You'll see that even more when Jupiter's crossing over your ascendant later this year. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Now we've got Maritza, and then we have Amanda. Maritza. All right, let's see what Maritza has to say. And if you guys want to get your readings in, scan the QR code, get in the queue before we call last call. All right, so Maritza says, all right, we've got August. Oh, wrong Maritza. Hold on. I have two of you guys. Maritza, this one. There we go. All right, August 25th, 84. Thank you for all you do. Could you help me understand what this up and coming new moon means for me in career and money? I have this intuitive sense that it's important for me, but I don't know why or how. Any advice on what I should be doing or looking for? I just want to know. I appreciate you and your insight. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, so she wants to know about the new moon and why it's so significant for her, or why she may have a feeling that there is something kind of big connected to this. So you are a Aries rising, barely. And this is going to be right on the cusp of your 10th and your 11th house. So by degree, it's in your 11th house. So a new moon in the 11th house is basically saying, okay, when it comes to 11th house things, there is a fresh start. So on one hand, this is like making friends, joining networks, connecting with people online, socializing, going to parties, connecting with other friends. But the 11th house is the second house from the 10th. So this is like the money that's a derivative from your work, right? So it actually, the second house is what you possess. It's money that you already have in the bank. It's like things that you buy and your spending power. But the money that you make from work is the 11th. So when you have a new moon in the 11th house and you're like, my goal is to make more money or to get a raise or a better paying job or whatever your wishes are, because the 11th house is just wishes in general, this is where we set the intention. What I like about this new moon is that it's at a 9, so it's very positive. It's about growth. It's about abundance. I also like that it's going to trine Jupiter. So this is kind of like an alignment with like the Taurus rising reading. That's like, oh, you have a new moon in your 10th and it's trining Jupiter in your money house. So for you, you may get some of the benefits of that, but I think it's just money goals in general. And what's interesting is that you have Jupiter conjunct Chiron. So anybody who's got Chiron in the second house, there can be some issues revolving around self-esteem, resources, sometimes lack of funds, wounds revolving around that. In Gemini, it's like, oh, I don't feel like I know enough about money, or, you know, I don't feel like I'm well versed when it comes to spending or saving, or maybe it can be also kind of connected to how you talk about your relationship with money, how you talk to yourself, right? Self-esteem is the second house. So I would say with this new moon, you want to, first of all, write things down, because it's trining Jupiter in Gemini. So we need to speak positively, Jupiter in Gemini, about ourselves, second house. Also, this is about being like, I am worthy of, you know, I receive, the universe is showing up, it is providing for me, it is giving me all of these blessings, everything is coming my way, I receive that. I mean, it's something you need to say or something that you need to like write. And it's so interesting. I was like listening to this woman today, and she was talking about like manifestation and like how simple it is. And it was funny because she was saying, well, take a piece of paper, write down exactly what it is that you want. But before you do that, you got to know what you want. Well, knowing is Gemini, right? Jupiter is believing. So you don't only have to know what you want, but you have to believe that you're capable of being able to receive that. Write it out as if it's already happening, fold it up, put it somewhere that you're going to see it every day. So when you see that piece of paper, it's a reminder that's like, oh, these things are coming. I got to get ready for it. And then you got to create space in your life for it. So you need to start doing things and acting in a way as if that's already coming to you. Now, that's not me giving you the green light to go on a shopping spree, but I do feel like this can be about you thinking more positively about money and starting to maybe make plans and think about, oh, what would I do with it, right? Obviously, Jupiter's connected to your 8th house. I'm going to pay off my debt. I can't wait till this money comes in. I'm going to pay off my credit cards. I am going to maybe book a trip. I'm going to have more time, you know, to, practice leisure learning. Maybe I'm going to take a course. These are the things that you want to be kind of thinking about. And then in 6 months' time, when this becomes a full moon in Aquarius, you know, you got to give it at least that long to see it kind of materialize. You'll have a couple days where the sun is also going to be trining Jupiter. So it's not just the new moon, but the sun's going to trine Jupiter as well. So it's going to kind of show you where some of your creative goals can actually come to fruition. So yeah, bottom line, this is a good transit, or I guess lunation, when it comes to bringing in more resources. Jupiter's going to wake up pretty soon, and that's going to give you the opportunity to start seeing that wealth come in. I really feel like February through June is going to be a pretty significant turning point. Obviously, you know, your money house is ruled by Mercury, and Saturn's been in opposition to that, so maybe it's kind of felt like it's out of reach. And you're probably going to want to start watching when the South Node is coming up on your Mercury, but that's not going to be closer to 2026. Okay? Hopefully that's helpful for you. I love some of the aspects that it's making in this chart. Not only the trines that can improve self-esteem and money, but the sextiles to your 8th house, really working with the astrology, Mars, Uranus, to help bring in what it is that you need and desire. All right, so let's see, who do we have next here? All right, so that was Marissa. And we've got Amanda and then Jennifer. And then I will update my notes. We're going to call last call. So if you guys want to get in, get in. Get in while you can. Let's see, was that right? Yeah, Amanda and then Jennifer. All right, let's pull up Amanda. I want to make sure I have the right one. I've got so many people now in my software. January 2nd, 85. All right, you're welcome. All right, so Amanda says, can you pull my chart and see what I need to know, or any advice you have for me, specifically in the love department? After nearly a 3-year relationship, I was totally blindsided when my boyfriend ended things suddenly today. Not sure if we can repair or rebuild after this. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, as a 0-degree Libra rising, I look at some of the stuff going on with the late degree Virgos, and I kind of shudder a little bit. So part of what's going on is this. Look, you know, you have critical degrees on all 4 angles. And I'm sure I've told you this before, but I'm just going to repeat myself. 29, 29, 29, 29. So when an outer planet is coming up on an angle and it's making these aspects, it's pretty significant, because it's not just impacting the house. So in this sense, this is The North Node is conjunct your 7th house cusp. So there is something kind of going on here where it's like, all right, there is some critical turning point with a relationship. Pisces is dissolving, hiding, vanishing. Obviously, 29 degrees can be about boyfriends. It's a Leo degree. And then we've got the North Node in conjunction to Neptune, which now these are at least shifting into your 6th house, okay? So like I said this in a previous comment about another chart, relationships end in the 6th house. I will stand by this until the test of time. I mean, like, I have seen this time and time again. They don't end in the 7th house, they end in the 6th house. So with Saturn, Venus, and Neptune all aligning in the 6th house, there is something that was getting ready to dissolve or wrap up or finish up, literally, when it comes to relationships, and somebody is vanishing. This is all ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is also retrograde, okay? And the 9th house is 3rd house from the 7th, which means they are not communicating, telling you what's going on. You're like, what is the problem? What's happening? Why are you hiding away? And likely until you see Jupiter wake up, or until you see a retrograde here, you know, you're not going to know which way this is going to go, or if there's going to be a chance for reconciliation, in my opinion. For the next year, even though Saturn and Neptune will go into Aries, right? Let me show you. It's still going to be sitting at that critical 29 degrees, right? So there's something kind of going on here where it's like, okay, there's a Mercury retrograde. You might try to reconnect with them in March, try to see if you guys can hash things out. Truth be told, as much as I hate to say this, for Virgo and Libra risings, the likelihood of finding out that Mercury and Venus retrograde in your 7th house, you know, could it be that they come back and they want to hash things out? Maybe. That is certainly a possibility, but there's a lot of speculation with this transit that you're going to find something out about your partner that you did not know. Now, certainly it could be they were feeling a certain way, they got scared, they didn't know how to show up in the relationship, but the likelihood that there is a secret or something they were keeping from you is generally pretty high. And I would wonder what that is, right? You got to be really careful with that 29 degrees, because people can act really Looney Tunes, or there can be a lot of drama, or there can be like a lot of like secret drama. Anyway, so I would wonder what happens in March with your chart ruler and Venus going retrograde in the 7th house. And we're coming into Venus shadow. So you don't even have to wait till March 1st for the retrograde to begin to try to reconcile and figure out what's going on. I would say to any Virgo rising that because Mercury and Venus are going to be retrograde in the whole sign 8th, it's less about other people. It's what do I need to change? What do I need to heal, right? Aries 8th house. And it could be a time where you're going to therapy. It could be a time where you're focusing on, you know, healing yourself and opening yourself up to love again. It's possible. Pluto is now in your 5th house too, so that could be part of it. Your natal Jupiter, by the way, is in Capricorn in the 4th. So I'm just going to go on a limb here. You know, usually if you have your 7th house ruler in the 4th house, people come back to you. Unfortunately, that's what they do. Whether you go weeks or years apart, or you go through a breakup, you take a separation, and then they end up coming back, they need to come to you. Now, your Jupiter is debilitated in a sense. It's in a sign that, you know, it doesn't function very well in Capricorn. And because it's in the 4th house, I feel inclined to tell you that your best course of action, and if somebody wants to talk to you with Jupiter in the 4th house, if you go through this retrograde in March, that you basically say, hey, here's the deal. You know, you want to talk to me, you need to come to me. You know, you let him show up at your house. Let him call you a couple times and try to kind of work it out and see if he can get a hold of you. And I would be like, what do you want to say? And then see if he comes to your home. Because according to the astrology, that's kind of what needs to happen. Even Saturn and Venus and Mercury are going to trine your natal Saturn, right? Which means they need to make you feel loved. They need to make you feel wanted. They need to be coming clean and talking to you about what their issues or their insecurities have been, and make you feel safe and secure. Now, let's say this doesn't happen, that you try to reconcile with him, you find out how he's really feeling, there's been some stuff going on that he didn't inform you about. I can tell you, you need to look back in time, and you need to look at what happened in April of, I think it was we had it in 2024. There was an eclipse and a retrograde in Aries. And then there was a Venus retrograde, I think that happened in like 2016. Amanda, he went through my personal journals. Ooh, that's not okay. So, you know, that sounds like more like Mercury kind of Pluto stuff, but I mean, invasion of privacy and space, I mean, that's going to be more something in regards to your Mercury, you know, your private life. And Saturn has been squaring that. Yeah. So, you know, this is what people do in private, especially your partner, and looking at or reading your personal things. I could definitely see that. So if there's something he saw or he read or something he thought, and then he's like in his feelings about it, I mean, this isn't like my professional opinion, but like obviously that's not cool if that's something that he decided to do. But still, things are becoming, like, secrets are coming out, even if it wasn't anything that you meant for him to see or not. Welcome to the South Node in your 12th house. Things that are hidden are no longer hidden now, and people are going to make issues about it, and they're going to make a stink about it, right? Wow, he went through it and held on to it for 10 days. Yeah. I mean, it's up to you what you decide to do, but I'm going to tell you that 29 degrees of Pisces is notorious for being a little sneaky, and also somebody who can kind of really get in their head about things. A lot of it's going to really be dependent on his placements. I would give this maybe until the beginning of April and see what happens, especially towards the end of March when you have Mercury and Venus, and if you guys are able to kind of make it through this. I mean, I'm surprised he told you. Did he just showed up at your house and he broke up with you? But did he tell you? I mean, obviously he told you he went through your stuff. So he's going to tell you he went through your stuff, and then he's going to tell you that he broke up with you? I mean, yeah, I hate to be like this, but I'd be like, let him go, because something is going to happen here. Something is going to happen here with this retrograde in your 7th. The only thing you need to try not to do, because you're Mercury, is get really in your feelings and really sad and lonely and reach out to him, because I could see that with Mercury retrograde in the 7th. Like, oh my God, you know, I need to be with him. I'm not hearing from him. What's going on? Like, no. Other people are Jupiter. So if there's going to be a reconnection, if it happens maybe sometime at the end of March, but still, Saturn and Neptune are going to go in and out of Pisces. I mean, you're going to see some of the same shit. There's going to be some other issues you'll have in mid-April. And when Mercury comes into conjunction with Jupiter, when it's in better condition in June, this means that things could either get better and they could improve, or this means that you're going to meet somebody else. I mean, I'm going to be really honest with you. Like, Saturn and Neptune are going to be on and off of your ascendant. Anybody that you're dealing with for the next year is going to be a little sneaky. And when Jupiter goes into the 10th house, relationship is supposed to expand. Your public image is supposed to expand. Your career, you know, your relationship status is going to improve. But it's still squaring Saturn and Neptune, where it's like, yeah, you know, work could be good, life could be good, you could be busy, but you could be like, I'm still not totally thrilled about the state of certain relationships. And I think until Jupiter is trining Saturn, which will be in the fall, that's when relationships in theory will get better. But just looking at the transits the way that it is now, I'm going to tell you there's going to be more sneaky things that are going to continue to keep going on. And it's stuff that they would keep secret because it's in Pisces, right? And he'll be passive about it. Yeah, he'll be passive about it. That's the difference between the Virgo rising and the Libra rising. Virgo risings are going to deal with people who are kind of getting crazy and getting in their head about stuff that they're secretly doing, and then Libra risings are going to have partners that are just going to outright be a pain in the ass, and they're going to hash it out with you. So, you know, yeah, I as much as I hate to say it, it makes sense to me looking at your transits why this is happening, because Saturn is still squaring Jupiter, so there's relationship issues. Honestly, I kind of see this as like a con. Like, I think that he's taking the easy way out, and Pisces is naturally passive, and it's like, you know, it doesn't want drama and it doesn't want to have conflict, and it wants to be able to kind of wiggle in and out of things. And I'm so sorry to hear that this happened. I mean, you know, the North Node can definitely show us where there can be people who can come into our life relationship-wise that are not necessarily good. It's hard to kind of predict and realize what's going on. And if somebody took it upon themselves to go through your personal things, not tell you about it, and then show up and then break up with you because they went through that stuff, I would consider myself lucky, and I would be very enthusiastically anticipating and waiting for this retrograde period in March, because it can be a time where somebody better can come into your life, to be honest with you. If relationships are meant to end, they're going to end with some of these transits. And if somebody else is supposed to be checking in to be with you, or it's like the next person who's like in alignment to be a significant partner, they will. And I'm sorry to hear that this happened, but girl, when you get to later this year, when Jupiter starts trining Saturn, relationships are going to be so much better. I mean, September, October, November, things are going to be much, much, much better in this chart, you know? Oh, I hope you beat him with that journal. Oh, man. What's up? What's up, Marsha? Let me see if you used yours or not. Let me check. No, I can add you. Just let me know if you want to use your Astro this month. I can do that for you. I would have beat his ass with that journal. I mean, if he brought it back to you, like, why would you be dumb enough to tell somebody you went through it? But I mean, it sounds like he was grasping for straws on that one. All right, readings are closed. So if you hear your name, that means I have you. Who do we have here? Stephanie. Let's see. Who else do I have? Ariel, Amanda, Megan, Gabriella, Matthew, Rome, Jennifer, Sage Moon, Tria, Angie. Okay, so yeah, that's everybody. All right. Okay, so let's move down on my list. We've got Jennifer, who, let's see, so we've got her asking about RCH. So it looks like there was 2 questions from her. So let's pull this up here. Jennifer. I think this is the right one. I just want to double check. What luck can this Jupiter return as karmic meeting chart mean? Oh, so we're looking at the moment that you guys met. Let's see, 2013. All right, so let's look at that. So meeting. Well, these are fun. I like meeting charts. That's super fun. Okay, Philly, April 22nd, 2013. And that was 1:59 p.m. Here we go. So this is the meeting chart. April 22nd, 2013, 1:59 p.m., Philadelphia. Okay, and you guys are going to have your Jupiter return, so we'll look at that. Jen and RCH. Okay. And Jen. So let me look at the meeting chart, and then I'll look at RCH compared to Jen. So let's look at the point of fortune on this. And the vertex, because that'll be significant as well. Okay, Salty Mama, just let me know what your question is and I'll put you in. All right, so off the bat, Leo rising chart ruled by the sun. And if you look at this, the sun was in conjunction with Mars, technically with Venus too, but they were all under the beam of the sun. So 9th house, spirituality, luck, things revolving around lessons, learning, traveling. Venus is in her domicile. Mars is a little weak here. And it's interesting that this was happening as Venus was coming into an opposition with Saturn. Saturn on the north node, Venus approaching the south node. So we've got something that's connected to the past and also the future. technically with like Mars, the Sun, and Venus coming into an opposition with Saturn means like there is this lesson of coming together, coming apart, coming together, coming apart. Especially because Saturn represents service or work or things revolving around helping or healing. And then we've got Venus is connected to communications. It could be at a distance, supporting one another at a distance, coming together and like working out some kind of past karma that needs to be kind of flushed out, or somebody owing somebody a favor. I don't really see like the Sun South Node conjunction as bad. Maybe Venus is kind of like, oh, we've worked together, we've been friends, we've been in relationships in the past. And obviously these are also significant. Moon trine the South Node also indicates it's karmic, especially in matters of like business and finance. And the moon is also trining Pluto, right? So if we look at the Jupiter return, I'm just going to do it from the same location. Just looking at the Jupiter, obviously Jupiter's in, Gemini, so it's not the strongest, but it is in the 10th and it is direct. So let's look at the next Jupiter return. I think there was a couple of them. So the next one is going to be March 30th, 2025. And at the end of March, this is going to give us a Libra rising chart with Venus retrograde. Notice the theme here with the Jupiter return, or the meeting chart. Venus was in opposition to Saturn, which means being apart and coming together, right, for some purpose. And now in this chart, we have got Venus is the ruler, and she is conjunct Mercury. So this is about care, service, helping one another in some capacity, especially when it comes to professional stuff or health or making sacrifices to help the other person. And Venus is now conjunct the North Node in Saturn. So where 12 years ago it was like, okay, we met, and now it's like, for what purpose? Now part of the purpose is fulfilled during the second Jupiter return. And Jupiter is the dispositor, meaning the ruler of all this Pisces. And where is Jupiter? In the 9th house. I mean, I'd rather see Jupiter there. Jupiter is also, obviously the return is direct. It's not a retrograde. So that's working in your favor as well. Jupiter's trining the ascendant. So it's going to help expand the relationship and transformation of relationship, especially in regards to contracts, law, legality, travel agreements. And we do have a slight square between Jupiter and Saturn. It's pretty wide, and that's just basically saying there is some need to kind of offer service or help in order to be able to have more of those things. So I'm wondering, like, what is the help? Is it caretaking, or is it going to be more working together? Is it going to be helping with legal matters, or is it going to be, pertaining to kind of helping support running a company, dealing with employees, dealing with the day-to-day? It's going to be one of those two things that's going to happen. I think the fact that Mercury, Venus, and Saturn are here does talk about now there is like this fulfillment, and like now there's going to be this turning point where you're going to realize why there was a meeting, why these two people came together, and like what the purpose ultimately was. If we look at the meeting chart let me pull this back up here. Let's see. Look at the meeting chart with RCH. So let's look at how this impacted RCH. All right, so put the meeting chart here. So the meeting chart's on the outside. And if you notice, the moon was transiting in the 9th. So that's similar to what we saw with like the Jupiter being connected to that as well. And let's see what else was going on. So 5th house, there was a lot of activation. Mars, Sun, Venus. So that could be more, if it's 5th house, it could be more romantic, but it is whole sign 6. So that can be working together. Jupiter was on his North Node. So it was about a fated meeting, an encounter, somebody who he needed to communicate and connect with and learn from. And Saturn was really close to Juno. So it does talk about partnership and kind of commitment between two people. So that's really prominent. I always see interesting stuff when somebody's got North Node in the 7th and Jupiter hits that. It's just like, well, you're meeting somebody who's supposed to expand, what it means in regards to relationships. And the moon was squaring that at that time. So it definitely has some really strong business kind of connections. And then if we look at Jen, and how that was impacting you. Make sure I've got the right one here. 313. Maybe it was under Jen. There we go. And how the meeting impacted you. So the moon was crossing your ascendant. It opposed your sun. So this was a full moon in regards to relationships with two people. And we have Venus that was conjunct Juno. So it was about some kind of spiritual partnership, but also involved money and business. And look at this. This is right when Jupiter was on your point of fortune. So that was on his north node, your point of fortune, ruled by Mercury. And at the time, well, Mercury was in your 7th. So some kind of partnership that was like starting. And then Juno was conjunct your south node in Saturn. So there's a lot of like, look at this, south node, Juno, south node, Juno. Some kind of partnership karma, like having been married or worked together or been partnerships in the past is kind of like the feeling that I'm getting. And then we can do this. This is where things get really interesting. You guys can go down a ton of rabbit holes when you start playing with composite charts. Let's look at this. Let's look at the composite chart. I want to look at the Davidson. Davidson, if you do a midpoint composite, you're taking the midpoint between all of the planets, and it'll create a chart that sometimes is not astrology that really happened. That's my biggest gripe with midpoint. You'll see like Sun in opposition to Mercury, which those of you guys who are astrologically sound, you know that that's not physically possible. Mercury is never more than like 3 signs from the sun. Anyway, in a composite chart, you can see that kind of bullshit, which is not real. A Davidson chart, though, is the exact midpoint of the day and the location and the time of when 2 people were born. So it's going to give you a real astrology chart, astrology that really happened. And that's the Davidson. So what we're looking at right now in this chart is your guys' Davidson composite chart. Okay, so this is how you go down the rabbit hole with synastry astrology. It gets kind of crazy. But if we look at the meeting on top of the Davidson, look at what it does. And this is why I know that this is real. And I've seen this in my own relationships and stuff too. Where is Venus and Mars? Okay, Mars is ruled the ascendant, Venus is partnership. Venus and Mars are approaching the 7th, coming together. Actually, yeah, Mars is heading towards Venus. So that was about a connection. South node, faded. Jupiter was exactly on your guys' composite vertex, which is encounters, 8th house, transformative, intellectually stimulating, opportunities for investment, money, healing, wealth. You guys had the point of fortune right on top of your north node, a destined meeting, communication, right? And that's all trining your 7th house. And the transiting moon was in Virgo in the 11th house, so maybe meeting in a social setting, maybe. Saturn on the ascendant is interesting because that generally, I could see Saturn transiting the ascendant as being like, well, we're meeting and we're talking business, but little did you know there was going to be a whole other layer of involvement. And I think the sun in the 8th house in a midpoint chart, in a Davidson chart means that you're here to transform and change. Money, the ego, career, learning more about negotiations, business. It could even be some kind of mentorship. And even in this chart, Venus is conjunct the south node. It's all over the midpoint, but really the Davidson is quite significant. And then if you flip this chart around and you look at the meeting chart, which is the Leo rising, look at this shit. Pluto and Juno on the ascendant. A very, very strong attraction, connection, but also something that's like, oh no, we can't partner in this way. We can't do it this way. It's not possible, or there would be too much drama, right? So what is it saying? We have to go into the 7th house, where the point of fortune is. We're partnering in a new way, right? Aquarius, and Juno is there. So we're partners in business. We're partners in crime. And the sun vertex, which is usually in the 8th, moves to the 10th. Growth of a business, restructuring things, opening the mind, expanding something. And then the north node point of fortune is in the 5th, which whole sign 6, which is also about work. You guys came together. I have a hunch that Maybe you feel very protective of one another. Maybe there is this feeling that's like we were meant to meet and we feel like we owe it to each other. We look out for each other and we're devoted to each other and we're doing partnership in a different way in this lifetime than maybe we have done it in the past. But that bond, that connection is so strong if you have Venus South Node and if you have planets in the 8th house. So there's, I mean, do not sleep on Davidson charts. Davidson charts are the real deal, especially when you start looking at like meeting charts and stuff. Like I remember looking at my chart because my husband and I, we met like, I don't know, 13 years ago or something. And then didn't talk for like 7 or 8 years. And then the day I went and looked at the Davidson composite, but the day that we reconnected was right when Venus was retrograde over our composite Venus. And then the North Node was there. And I was like, this was not in the midpoint chart, you know, but you can see it through the Davidson. So highly, highly recommend. You can get Davidson charts, I think, through astro.com, I believe. And I also think that you guys, I know you guys can do it through Astro Gold if you guys have it. All right, I think you had another question here, so I'll just knock those both out at the same time. I want to make sure that I give you the, okay, so this is for Jen. There we go. There we go. All right, sorry, so many charts. With Venus returning, bringing the capital for the investment, is Saturn transiting my sun going to be positive? So money owed or, you know, investment like kind of coming back to you is going to be connected to Mars, right? And so you're a Virgo rising, but obviously Mars retrograde in the 10th is like delays in money coming in from investments or things kind of connected to business. Your money is Venus. And so Venus retrograding in the 7th can mean that money is coming back to you through people you've worked with and who you've partnered with. That is possible. Venus and Mercury are going to retrograde over your natal Venus, and it's at a 4, which means from the past. So my thought is things will probably get pretty good when Venus starts retrograding over your natal Venus. So you're going to start seeing that coming up like right around mid-March, and it'll retrograde with Mercury, which means people are coming back or investments may be paying off. And then you're going to see a solar eclipse that's going to be in your whole sign 8th with the retrograde. So perhaps it could mean that you know it's coming in, but there's a bit of like a delay, or you're waiting to be able to exchange things or for people to pay you back. And then the state of your natal Venus right now is going to get hit by Venus several times. So the days that you're going to want to watch, March 19th, definitely March 24th, because there's going to be a Cazimi right on your Venus. That's significant. You're going to want to watch when Venus is trining Mars. And that looks like that's going to be, let's say like April 4th-ish. And then when Venus comes back and it hits your natal Venus again. And that'll be right around May 7th. But it's possible with this full moon that you're going to see in Scorpio, which will be in your 2nd house, that could be some kind of turning point, because this is a full moon that's about fulfillment in finances, ruled by Mars, and Mars is trining Venus. Mars rules money owed, Venus rules the money that you have. So, you know, could be kind of like, oh, it's going to come in at the end of March, and it's like, oh, there's a delay, and you're waiting in April, and you're going back and forth and waiting for, you know, those funds to be replaced or something to be kind of given to you. But I would think that with the retrograde in your whole sign 8th, that money is coming your way, especially from investments and things from the past, right? So I really feel like there's probably going to be a delay. If you haven't gotten the payment by the end of March, you're looking at probably getting it closer to May. And then obviously your money, right, that you've invested is Mars. So Uranus is going to be squaring your Mars. So I would hope that the investments are coming out before Uranus starts squaring your Mars here in July, before Saturn is conjunct your Venus. And then you're going to see probably the money that comes in, you may be considering reinvesting that. Like that might be something coming up for you actually in the spring of 2026, when you have like a retrograde in your 6th house, and then Saturn's going to hit your Venus. Although I do have a hunch it's going to be more property or real estate related, or, you know, home related, because your Venus is at a 4. So it's like, well, what do I roll it into, or what else am I investing in? And that's right when the North Node is on your Mars. And the 6th house can actually be about being a landlord or something. So it can be being like, I'm getting an investment property or something of that nature, right? But that's kind of like my thought on this. I think the retrogrades can be really good for Virgo risings who have made investments, because you got an eclipse and then a retrograde, which can be bringing things back to you. But your natal Venus, you know, it's going to get hit a couple times. So you may want to pay attention to right around the time that Venus is going to be around 4 degrees, especially that cazimi. For me, I think about that cazimi and I'm like, the only thing that could happen that I would just watch for is somebody who said, oh, we're going to put up the funds, or we're going to, you know, reimburse you, or we're going to pay you back. Cazimi is supposed to be positive, okay? So maybe, I'm looking for the date there, right here, on the 24th. When this happens, it's right on your Venus, and the ruler is Mars, and Mars is in the 10th. So maybe just give them a little bit of like leeway until the end of March to see how things kind of go. But that might be the turning point where it's coming back to you. Anyway, you'll have to let me know how accurate the timing is with those days, because you can get really specific with certain days where things could likely happen. Davidson is not anything I'm familiar with. It's the most accurate. I mean, like and the best way to really look at it is like if you have chart details of a person you've been in a relationship with, or like if you're somebody who you're in a relationship with now, do the Davidson and then go back and look at significant turning points. When you met, when you guys broke up, when you bought a house, when you got married, that kind of stuff. Obviously, when you get married, you got to look at the wedding chart, not just the Davidson. But both are going to kind of carry their own weight depending on how you're using them. Jen, I hope that that's helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm always happy to help. All right, so we have got a number of charts that I have to kind of put in here. So give me just a second. You guys can grab a drink or grab a snack. I'm going to input these really quick. Some of you guys I already have, so it may not take too long. And if you haven't already, please like the stream. Give me a thumbs up. It helps with engagement. It lets other people know that we're here. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel, or you're following me on X. And thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate these. Sometimes take a little bit longer. Salty Mama, did you have a question? I wasn't sure if you did or not. Let me know. Let's see. Do I have Gabriella? I do. for Ariel, what time were you born? I got you, Rom. If you're here, Ariel, let me know because I need to know what time you were born. 3:56 a.m. Thank you. Almost done, guys. Thank you for your patience. Stephanie. Let's see. Stephanie. Let's see if I have you here. Stephanie F. I got you, Romo. I have your info. Can I get your birth information? Is it June 27th, 93? I just want to make sure this is the right one. Let me know. All right, let me go back to my list. Make sure I've got everybody. So we should be, we got to take Salty Mama. So before I forget, Salty Mama. There we go. Marsha. Just confirming your birth details, December 18th, right? What should I focus on with the new moon in Aquarius? All right, gotcha. All right, so if you hear your name, Tria, Gabriella, and Sage Moon, you guys are all on deck, okay? All right, so Marsha wants to know what's up with this new moon. I'm focusing on remission of my autoimmune condition, so my transits or time to focus. All right, so the new moon is technically in your 12th, and Mars is also still retrograde in your 6th. So even though the new moon in Aquarius is good for Aquarius risings, in theory, because it's still in your 12th house, it's saying it's still about rest and recuperation. What I like about this in terms of how it positively aspects your natal chart is that it's going to be trining your natal Uranus in the 8th house, which can actually be about like recharging your batteries, and it can also be about making some big changes in regards to balancing relationships, joint funds. Could also give you some time while you're kind of resting and recuperating to study or to be learning new things, especially astrology related. So it can bring a new surge of energy that can be like renewal, but it might take a little bit of time. And obviously we know that the new moon is trining Jupiter. And if you notice, it's creating an air trine in water houses, 12th, 8th, and 4th. So it's more emotional, healing, therapeutic. I like new moons in the 12th house to be like, I am setting up a meditation nook, or I am going to focus on my nighttime routine, or I'm going to be meditating more, or whatever. And this is about collective energies because it's going to be in your 12th house. Where it's challenging, okay, is that this is a new moon that's going to be at a midpoint that's connected to your Saturn, which is your chart ruler. And also your Venus and your Mars. So it's squaring this stuff. So in your chart, it's kind of creating, if you take your angles into consideration, you know, Leo too, like a grand fixed cross. So the first house is like, or right along the first house, what do we do first thing in the morning? Or what actions are we taking? Or in your case, what am I envisioning for this new beginning for myself? How do I want my body to feel? How am I going to be shifting things vibrationally? Like I would be listening to binaural beats. I'd be going to sound bowl, meetups. I would be focusing on frequency healing. I would be doing anything that's going to be vibration based, right? That's what I would do. And the 12th house is private spaces, whether it's studying, sleeping, or it's something of a spiritual nature. The next new moon, which will be in Pisces, I think because that new moon is going to fully be in your first house, and then you're going to have retrogrades in your first house, that March seems to be when you're kind of getting maybe back into things. I found that like autoimmune stuff and like immune systems in general is Pisces. So that retrograde that you're going to have in your first house, and then also Mars is going to go direct, probably will be less inflammation, feeling more proactive, more productive, and that you have rested and like you're ready to kind of hit the ground running in March is what I would assume. With retrogrades, things can go one way or another. There may be some dietary changes that can happen that month as well, but I think that you'll be feeling a little bit better. But this being smack dab in between your Venus, which is like being out, working, being with the people, being out in the open, and then squares to Saturn in the third, this is kind of like feeling like you're between a rock and a hard place. You're like, what do I need to do? How do I need to rest and recharge so I can get back out into the swing of things and feel like I can be productive or on top of things, and then also better navigate some of the emotional things or stuff that's going on with my day-to-day with my family and like home, responsibilities. And the truth is that if the square is happening with your sun in the 12th, you have to envision it and start to get the body online with, I am healthy, right? I am healed. I am, responding very well to my treatments. I am rested. I am supported. Like that's the stuff that you need to be thinking about. It's kind of like the Magician card, as above, so below. And then as you come into the new moon in Pisces, then you're going to start to kind of feel those energies shift. And as I've said, I have been saying this a lot in my videos, Pisces energy gives you the exact opposite of what you're asking for. That's what I've observed. So I wouldn't be super focused on, I have to be 100% better, I have to be productive, I have to be working or making money or whatever. It would be, my body is bouncing back and it's doing it in its own time and I trust the process. That's how you have to look at it. And there's no timeline, there's no agenda. We can't really do that with Saturn and Pisces because we're not really working well with concepts revolving or relating to time. What I will tell you is that in 6 months' time, when this becomes full moon, it is going to still be squaring your Venus and your Saturn. And when this becomes a full moon, Uranus, which is the ruler, is now going to be in Gemini. And look at where Uranus is. It's right on the cusp of your 4th house. So maybe some radical change with your own business, whole sign 5th house. It might be some change going on with your home. It might mean that you're prioritizing what's best for you with this new moon, and that means there's going to be changes to your professional responsibilities or to your home responsibilities. This is where you break free and kind of get out of the box. And I predict that a lot of Aquarius risings, especially with Pluto in your sign and Uranus going into your whole sign 5th house, you guys are going to have so much more free time, more fun. You're going to feel like you can celebrate, you can have a good time, you can party, you can be more creative. And you're really going to kind of cut loose over the summer. So that's another incentive and reason, I think, to be like focusing on what's going on with your health. So that way you feel like you can really do the things that you want to do. And you have so much support with Pluto sextiling from your sign to Saturn and Neptune and Aries to sextiles to Uranus and Gemini. Like, I can't wait for this summer. The energy is going to be so incredibly different. It's going to be really interesting to see how some of this stuff is going to play out for the collective. But for you, I think it's going to give you a lot of freedom, I hope that's helpful. I hope you feel better. Sending you lots of good vibes in the midst of some of these transits. Even just the planets leaving your 12th house, I think, is going to do a lot. So you might start to really, maybe turning a quarter, 5th, 6th, 7th of February, but give it at least till the end of, March to start kind of really being back at it. All right, we've got Tria. Lots of irons in the fire, yep. All right, so we have got, let me open this up. Tria. There we go. Tria says April 1778 in Albuquerque, New Mexico at 3:30 a.m. Can you take a look at between June 8th and 10th, 2025 for an overview? I do some astrology with my own chart, but there's so much going on with Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars. I cannot get a good idea. Thanks so much. You got it. Okay, so we're going to look at June 8th and 10th. So you're looking at Mars conjunct Saturn. And this is also going to be squaring Uranus in your third. I'm going to be most focused on what's going on with Jupiter. Okay, so I mean, if you look at what's happening with Jupiter, Mercury, your seventh house lord, is conjunct Jupiter in the fourth, but it's going into the fifth. So this could actually be pretty significant with Mercury and Jupiter meeting for relationships and partnerships. Mercury is connected to the south node. So there is some turning point in regards to relationships with home and family, but I think this is more good for like romantic relationships because Jupiter and Mercury will be in conjunction even before that. So they're going to be conjunction the 7th. And then you're going to have your Jupiter return, which looks like that's going to be a couple days past what you asked, but looks like it's around the 12th. It really depends on like what year you're into. So for example, your birthday is in April. So you're going to be going into a Saturn Aquarius annual perfection year, which is a 12th house year. Okay. So whole sign. Ruler obviously is traditionally Saturn. So 12th house year is about wrapping things up, concluding things, you know, and it's going to be dealing with your natal Saturn. Well, you've got Saturn retrograde in the 6th conjunct the moon. So what does that mean? Well, it could be taking care of animals, dealing with reproductive matters, dealing with hidden enemies at work, working through some frustrations revolving around home and family. And for Mars to be hitting Saturn when you're in a Saturn year, not easy. Not easy. I'd be watching work, I'd be watching health. But there are other things going on in the skies that aren't really all that bad. I'm most focused on the Mercury-Jupiter conjunction and then your Jupiter return. So it looks like Mercury and Jupiter meet on the 8th, ruled by the moon, and the moon is in Scorpio. So it's going to go into your 10th house, and then it's going to be a full moon. So to me, this looks like there could be some work changes, right? And then look, you've got Mars conjunct Saturn. So that could also be some work changes too. So for me, I'm wondering what you're concerned about or what you're seeing. I think this could be good on the home and property and romantic kind of side. More difficult and more challenging when it comes to health and also productivity and dealing with people at work. And then obviously, since you're in a Saturn year, you want to look at what's going on with transit Saturn as well. Well, okay, whole sign Pisces rising for your, annual perfection time lord. It's going to go into the 2nd house, whole sign, which means there is a new beginning when it comes to building the self-esteem, making money in a different way. I look at the 10th and I'm like, okay, it's a fire trine, so it's going to be interesting. But Mars conjunct Saturn in the 6th could be changes with health or job. Full moon in the 10th house, changes with job. And then you've got Saturn, where Mars is the dispositor, coming into close proximity with your south node. Now, unless you're changing your diet, maybe you're improving something about your health or your lifestyle, that could be coming through too. Will the square affect the Neptune-Saturn of my Jupiter return? Yeah, it will. 100%. And, the 0 degrees of the cardinal signs are very potent. So yes, unfortunately, your Jupiter return is going to be riddled with some squares, right? But you could go and you could look at, okay, well, what's going to happen with the nearest Jupiter return, which will be on June 13th. And this is your Jupiter return chart. Doesn't look all that bad. You've got Venus is the ruler in her own domicile in the 12th, and you've got Jupiter in the 2nd house with the Sun and Mercury. This looks pretty good for money. I think probably the only thing I would say is that Venus is coming out of a square with Pluto, and Pluto's conjunct the midheaven. Even this is saying there's a big change on the horizon, either for your relationship status or for your job. And, you know, Jupiter in a square with Saturn, Jupiter is exalted. Saturn is debilitated because it's in Aries. So it's in the opposite sign of its exaltation. This is an opening square. So Saturn is going to have some, it's going to have some pull on Jupiter. It's going to say, okay, if you really want to expand your money, if you really want to have better resources, self-esteem, spending habits, get serious about your goals, 11th house. This is all ruled by Mars, and Mars is in the 4th. So what are your goals revolving around home ownership? Usually second house is land. You know, are you thinking about, oh, I want to buy property, I want to buy a house. Okay, well, if you want to do that, what do you need to do? Do you need to move? Do you need to look in other places? Do you need to downsize? Do you need to sell stuff? Your Jupiter is in Cancer after all, and your natal Jupiter is in the 4th. So it could be about some expansion of home and family. So in order to have this, you know, wealth accumulation, you might need to be willing to kind of give something up or let something go, maybe, or, you know, sell stuff or whatever. But this isn't a terrible Jupiter return at all. At least I don't think so. You know, Jupiter square Saturn, yeah, difficult, but it just means you're going to have to work harder for some of these things. And you could use this chart and you can kind of, you can look at this like, you know, if there are eclipses or other things that impact this. So like in the future, when Pluto hits 4, or when there's, you know, Saturn coming back to these degrees, or if there are full moons or other things going on in these places, you know, Jupiter, you're only going to have one Jupiter return because Jupiter's not going to go back to 0 degrees. So yeah, a little difficult. My natal Jupiter is in Cancer. My natal Saturn is in Capricorn. So I feel you. I feel you on that. I know that I'm going to get a little snaked on that one too. But don't just base it off of, I won't be here for my reading. Okay, no worries, Rum. I'll make sure that we do it for you. Hopefully I can answer all your questions. You got to look at the return chart, right? Because if you look if you look at your transits for your solar return, you can go, well, these are the transits for the day, but it could be completely different than the solar return chart. Same thing with like the Jupiter returns or any other return. You have to really look at the chart. I would say with Venus being in the 7th and with Pluto being connected to the 7th, to me, this is screaming some kind of relationship dynamic change, you know, at least in my opinion here. And with Venus squaring Pluto, it's kind of saying the same thing. Just watch out for like stuff at work. There could be some work drama because Venus is connected to your 6th house and it's squaring Pluto, some power struggles or some jealousy maybe, especially because I feel like this Jupiter return is going to definitely bring you some more money. How has Jupiter in Cancer played out in the past? Have you always like expanded your home or your family in some way? All right, we've got Gabriella. Let's see, Gabriella. What's up, Gabby? There we go. All right, so we have got Gabby, April 22nd, 71. Nope, that's not the right one. Hold on a second. I thought that was you. There we go. Is this you? There we go. Sorry, got two of you guys. April 22nd, 71. All right, she says, current cities, Queens. What will the Venus Mercury retrograde and the eclipses mean for me since it'll be conjunct my Venus MC moon? My love life sucks. Be careful with what you say. Okay? Be very, very careful. First of all, I think it's significant considering it's going to be on your midheaven. And the moon is your chart ruler. Okay? Saturn is the ruler of your 7th house of relationships. So we got to see something going on with Saturn. Well, yeah, your love life has been a mess because number one, you have Mars in the 7th house. So that's challenges with relationships. You do see that. You have exalted Mars. So, I mean, it could be people who work hard, obviously. But Uranus has been on your Saturn, which means you've been meeting people, but they're meeting other people, or they're like, let's be friends. And you're like, what the fuck? So things have not been working out well in that department because of the Uranus-Saturn. You want commitment and you want people to commit to you, and other people are like, I want freedom. all while it's simultaneously trining Mars. In my opinion, that's been the problem. Now you have Saturn coming up on your moon. You're the moon. So this could be more about the relationships you have with people at work, particularly women, the moon, or it could be that there is an opportunity to connect with somebody who's culturally different, diverse, they have a different belief system, they live far away. When you go to airports, you gotta look cute with Moon and Venus in the ninth, whole sign. If you're traveling, you're going places, make sure you look good, you know, be open to maybe meeting people who live in different places, be open to kind of, you know, experiencing variety when it comes to cultures and where people live. And Saturn is not only going to hit your moon, which could be about some karmic turning point in a relationship, but also it's going to hit your Venus. And that is also about relationship commitment. And Venus and the moon in the midheaven means you're beautiful. I've never seen somebody who has Venus on the midheaven that's not drop dead gorgeous, or Venus conjunct the moon in Pisces. You probably have really pretty eyes. And so Saturn coming into conjunction with that means that you may meet somebody either while you're traveling, or somebody who approaches you at work, or they're like, oh my God, you're so beautiful. I love your eyes. I love your face. Because it's like a very like Neptunian like aspect that you have there. Anyway, they may compliment you on that. And then you're going to have Saturn sextiling your Mars. I mean, I think with a chart like this, you know, Venus retrograde, I mean, be careful traveling in May. You could have some weird topsy-turvy stuff that could be happening. Not May, excuse me, March. But yeah, you're right in the line of fire. Mercury's going to retrograde over your Venus, which means you might have somebody who has a crush on you and you didn't know it. And like somebody at work tells you that they like you. You're going to have Venus retrograde over your Venus several times. So it's bringing you extra sweetness. It's going to retrograde over your moon. So you're going to get a lot of compliments. And then Saturn's going to come up and it's going to hit your moon with the North Node. Whatever happens in March and April, if you have had a total like lull in the relationship department, this might bring something very significant in. Because Venus is love and relationships. Saturn is karma and relationships. North Node is destiny, right? I would just say, like, be very careful traveling. That could be a nightmare. Stuff could go missing. You could have issues flying places. There could be problems with like torrential rain or flooding. Like if you're going to travel anywhere, get trip insurance and, you know, make sure you don't get sick. But work-wise and love-wise, I think it can be a very different dynamic, especially when you look at that while this is happening, it's all going to be sextiling your Saturn. So you're going to be like, you know, maybe introduced to somebody at a party, or, you know, a friend's going to want to set you up with another friend. And it's all going to trine your ascendant. I think it's fine. I'm not really worried about this, to be honest with you. I think that it'll bring you good things. We can't fear retrogrades, right? If anything, this is a retrograde that's more about karmic retribution. If you've done good things to people and you've been kind-hearted and you've been, you know, compassionate and all that stuff, then it will bring people to you who are going to treat you the same. But if there's people who have been screwing around and not being ethical and honest or whatever, those people are going to get crushed. You're having other stuff going on. Pluto square your sun, which is not a fun transit. Mars has been opposed Mars, so you haven't been feeling like you can connect with people. But my thought is, with Juno coming into conjunction with Jupiter later this summer and this Venus retrograde, I think that this could actually bring you some really good things in the love department. So I'm not really worried about it. But obviously with the Venus retrograde, there are things that are kind of backwards. Things are not clear. So we don't want to meet somebody and go, oh my God, it's the love of my life, because I've seen people who have done that during retrogrades, and then sure as shit, whether it's 6 months or 6 years later, you know, there is something that is being revealed or still being worked out. So we want to wait until we're getting to the latter part of April, kind of beginning of May, to be like, okay, if we've met people, something kind of happened, you know, the universe is, there's a lot of karma at play with Saturn in the North Node and retrograde. So it's kind of like a triple threat. The relationships that are meant to end will end. The ones that are meant to come in will come in. Travel, go places, meet people in other places. Look good when you are traveling. Look good when you're going into work. Pay attention to older men that compliment you with Venus coming into conjunction with Saturn. And also people who are, like I said, culturally diverse. Or you might meet people who are like, oh, I would love to, you know, show you my office, or I would love to take you to church, or I would love to, you know, travel with you somewhere. And you might be meeting men who also, like, they might do work in foreign lands, or they might have foreign business, or maybe they really love being on water or around water. It could be like skiing, surfing, boating, fishing, like that kind of stuff you might start seeing with Saturn coming into conjunction here. Circle back. Let me know in April, because I want you to give yourself that much time, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as you think it's going to be, personally. It's more of this Pluto square your sun nonsense where you're just like sick of issues with men, you know? You don't need a transit for that. I think that's just a man thing. All right, so we've got Sage Moon, and then we've got Rome who's not here, and Matthew. All right, let's see what we can help Sage Moon with. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. All right, she says, hey Candace, as you predicted, I had a pleasant surprise on my travels to Morocco. It was an amazing Capricorn season for me. I want to actually take a peek at the planets gathering near my ascendant. Can you advise me the best way to work with the energy the next week or to kickstart this year? I feel ready to get it with my career, my art, and my self-worth. Well, thank you very much. We've got another significant Pisces angle here. Definitely going to be colorful for anybody who's got planets on these degrees. Oh my goodness, can we get a hallelujah for Saturn getting ready to leave your moon? This is like the final pass. So you're looking at this, which we'll look at, but I'm looking at this. South Node is conjunct your vertex, and there can definitely be fated encounters that can be happening with this South Node vertex. Do not sleep on that. That is significant in the 7th house. Could it mean that you're feeling like you need to check in with an astrologer or a counselor or a therapist? Maybe, but this could also bring in clients. And because this is ruled by Mercury and there's going to be an eclipse here in March, and then the ruler is going to retrograde over your ascendant, you're bringing in clients, you're bringing in relationships, you're bringing in an audience. Trust me on this. It's really good for like a lot of attraction work. Anyway, Saturn's going to leave your moon, which I think will kind of lighten the load of the heaviness by about mid-February. You're going to have, obviously, the Sun, Mercury, Neptune, all of these planets pretty much February and even into March and April when Mercury and Venus retrograde back. So like I can't really just look at the planets being there temporarily now. I have to think about the bigger scheme of, February through April. On one hand, I feel like the positives is that it's going to make you very intuitive, very sensitive, okay? And this can be good if you're working with your intuition more. This can be good if you're trying to practice intuitive development, if you're trying to meditate, if you're trying to be better with your dream recalls. It can be difficult in a sense where we're daydreamy, we're idealistic, we don't always see things so clearly. Maybe we're overly optimistic. We can be lethargic, we can be tired a lot of the times, and we can kind of feel like a little lost or very empathic to the point where you're like a sponge and you're soaking stuff up from other people. So grounding your energy, protecting your auric field, taking your salt baths, all that stuff, which sounds like very hippy dippy, but you're really going to want to do that. I feel like I would be very gentle with myself because you're about to have Saturn come out of your 12th house and hit your ascendant. So even if the energy that I'm expressing that you're going to experience does not hit you until April, May, as soon as Saturn hits on your ascendant and Venus is done with the retrograde, you're no longer hiding in the 12th house. It's like you're literally coming out of hermit mode. So you're in the last final months of like having this time to rework yourself, like literally be in like cocoon mode where, you're going to transform into a butterfly. There's going to be something that's going to emerge and you're going to be like, boom, this is how I've changed. This is what I've got. This is what I'm doing. And you're ready to roll. And you're feeling like you want to socialize more because Saturn's connected to that. And you're feeling like your goals can kind of move forward. I can only think about what I've seen with clients and what I've experienced having Saturn in this part of my chart when I remember that transit when it was in Virgo. I felt like there was like an old identity that was like falling off. And then as Saturn crossed my ascendant, there was a new identity that emerged. And I looked different, I felt different, I carried myself differently. And obviously that shift from Pisces, which is kind of like la la land, to Aries, which is like, oh, now I got to get real about making money. My self-esteem is changing. I'm more proactive. I'm feeling more self-assured and also really focused on accumulation of wealth. So Saturn and Neptune kind of hovering in Pisces is like, I need to make these dreams and these things that I'm envisioning real. And then you're going to realize with the retrogrades in March and April, and then the ingresses into Aries, it's like, I need to get real. I need to do it. It's great to have the visions and the dream board and to do all of that stuff, but it's like, I got to start building something. And that's what's going to happen when you see the retrogrades in Aries and then the eclipse. So how do you navigate this? I mean, in many ways, it's very weird to be a Pisces rising right now, because Pisces is the end, right? And the first house is the beginning. So what you want to do is you want to have a morning routine, because the ascendant is upon rising. And you want to get up, you want to have, even if it's 15, 20 minutes, to sit down, write your intentions, listen to your music, do your little manifestation, meditation, visualize, 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 and then be like, and I'm going to start doing it. I'm not just going to wait for it to show up. I got to start building it. We want to get into that routine or that habit the next couple of months. So you make the time to kind of ground your energy, and then you get going with creating, building, doing whatever you're doing. Mars retrograde in your 5th house is trining this. This is about going back to creative projects. And feeling incentivized to like want to kind of finalize stuff and get things ready to go. It's all also sextiling all of your Capricorn. So it's supporting and it's helping, you know, bring something, you know, to fruition, something tangible. It is squaring your Venus, but I feel like if you have Venus in the 10th house, you're used to being seen or getting public recognition, or maybe being seen for creating a certain type of art, or being in a certain industry, or maybe being with other people. You have a very visible chart. But now these planets are going into an angular house, and they're going to start squaring, which means there's like an ending of one form of creating or way of creating or identity or kind of persona, and there's something new that's emerging, right? So I think that yeah, I mean, it's important to stay grounded and also recognize that whatever old versions of you that's kind of like peeling away during the retrogrades, like let it go. And there might be like even like a new style that's going to emerge. And, you know, Jupiter is connected to your chart. It's also connected to your career. And if you can navigate this year wisely, then when you start seeing Jupiter coming into your 5th house, you can have a lot of success for your art and your creativity if you channel this energy appropriately. So like July, August, September, you know, Jupiter in your 5th house, trining Saturn and Neptune is, I brought form to what I was creating, what I envisioned. I actually built something, created something, put something together. Now it's bringing me wealth. Now it's bringing me recognition. Now I'm going to feel more, you know, kind of like successful being like a creative or an entrepreneur. And this will also trine your moon, and this is also going to trine your ascendant. So there's like a method to the madness, basically. I want to be more into fashion like I always wanted to. I mean, Venus on the midheaven is great to be involved in fashion. I just think with Saturn on the ascendant, you have to really feel your way into it and believe that you're capable of doing that type of work. But I think with like, yeah, Venus on the midheaven and Jupiter being the ruler, and you've got Jupiter conjunct the sun, you could definitely do some of that stuff. It's going to be different. I think you're going to be kind of pulling from global styles and inspiration and other things like that because it's in Sagittarius, right? Trends is like a theme that you see a lot of with Venus. I hope that that's helpful. You'll have to let me know. Watch your health also. With Venus retrograde on your ascendant, you got to watch your health. You got to watch your feet. You got to watch your immune system. Especially when you start seeing the conjunctions with Venus and the sun. So there's definitely going to be some stuff here. And it's going to be wild to watch the Venus retrograde in Pisces and Aries, because we're already starting to see this. I feel like ever since we had, you know, really Uranus in Aries, there's been a huge trend with like women just wear all this like sports attire, right? And like I mean, I do it all the time, but it's like, we wear leggings, we wear tank tops and sneakers, and we run around, and it's like very like sporty. Now that the new Venus star points are going to start being in Libra, and now that we are also going to see the North Node in Pisces, which is feminine, and we're going to see Venus Mercury, so retrogrades, trends in style, that's going to retrograde from Aries into Pisces. You're going to see a lot of criticism for women who are not feminine in the way that they dress. We are going to see a return to things that are flowy and very Venusian and like super pretty and anything like that. That's really going to be more feminine. And we're going to see that trend happen. So there's going to be this push for more femininity, women being more kind of flowy and kind of Venus-like. And then we're going to see Saturn and Neptune come into Aries. So you're going to see a lot of feminine stuff. And then you're going to see for men a lot of masculine stuff. And it's going to be very connected to the sexes and you know, all that stuff. And then also with Saturn and Neptune, there will be some people who are going to go, oh, well, actually the new trend is thin, young, you know, they're going to say, we actually want people to be wearing things that look militant or military jackets or short haircuts or things that are red. So it'll be interesting to see the dynamic. I'm wondering which way it's going to go. I think that for sure the new in is definitely going to be about being fit, and it's going to be about being thin. And even if you're older, it's about being older and being very active, right? So we're going to want, people are just going to kind of gravitate towards that. That's what's going to happen in the next couple of years. And we're going to move away from tattoos. We're going to see a lot of people interested in piercings and a lot of things connected to scarification. That's going to be a huge trend as well. And hats. Hats and headpieces and other things like that. So we'll see. Those are some of my predictions, at least for the transits. All right, so we've got Rome, who's not here, and then we've got Matthew and Megan. So let's look at Rome's chart. Sorry, I missed you, Rome. Can we get a time check just so we can note? I guess we don't know exactly what time it is, but so I could tag him in this. All right, so let's look at his question. Chart reading. Let's see, did he ask it or did he just say he'd be back? Start my reading, so I'll leave my stuff on here. Okay, I'll just tell you what I can see, Rome, since you're not here. So I'll try to give you as much info as I can. Megan, you are 2 readings away. Okay, so, well, he's not here, but I just wondered if we had like a time code, but that's okay. All right, so here's the deal, my dude. You've got Mars retrograde in your 4th. So your chart ruler has been all over the place. There's been a back and forth going on, revolving around where is home, where am I living, and the oppositions to your 10th house is how is work impacting or influencing where I'm living and how I'm living. Big changes here. Positive is that even though Mars is retrograde, it is now starting to come into a trine with Venus, actually today, tomorrow. So there can be lots of support that's being given, especially the 12th house is like spiritual support or people who are offering services or, you know, giving you a safe place to kind of lay your head down. Venus is connected to relationships. So this can also be good about finding support in regards to relationships with other people, clients, you know, potential partners. Mars will be retrograde until about the 3rd week of February. So you're not going to see that ending anytime soon. But even through that process, you know, planets going through your 12th house are going to be trining that. So this is about feeling like you're able to get to a quiet space where you can have some time to kind of rest and recuperate. In terms of your natal Mars, Venus, Saturn, and Neptune are trining it. So it's opening the door actually to being like, hey, I can find places where I can work. I can have some peace. It can bring in some more money. And obviously business partnerships get highlighted with Juno and Mars that are coming together here as well. Where things get a little tricky, let's talk positives first, is that first you have a new moon that's going to be in the 11th house. All right, oops, new moon. There we go. And this new moon is in the sign of Aquarius, which deals with your friends, your allies, and groups. So support from other people, especially when it comes to traveling, movement, vehicles, or contracts. And this is going to trine Jupiter, so it's going to promote opportunities to travel or have better communication with friends. And this is going to be trining your 7th house. So you want to use the new moon in Aquarius to focus on goals, connecting with other people, maybe traveling or spending time with friends. Potentially some social invitations that will come from this. People who are saying, oh, come and visit me, come stay with me, you know, that kind of stuff. Where things get tricky is that you're going to have Venus and Mercury retrograde right on your ascendant. Now, before that happens, if you watch my horoscopes, if you haven't, go and watch them. But I talk about how Venus is going to go into Aries in February. And for Aries risings, the entire month, Venus is on your ascendant. So what is that doing as an Aries rising? It's bringing you more money, pleasure, food, and relationships. Like literally, you'll have people go, are you looking for a job? Like, can I feed you? Like, what are you doing later? Can I come over? You know, like people will seek you out. And Venus is about the hunter. So you might feel like, what is going on? Why am I getting so much attraction? Like, what's the deal? So you'll like it at first. And then in March, Venus and Mercury will turn retrograde. So you're going to want to, be mindful of anything revolving around head, face, bumping your head, working, anything like that. Take care of your health. But it can bring people back in. So let's say you've been disconnected from people from the past who you've worked with, or romantic relationships, they can kind of pop back in March. You watch your health because it's retrograde on your ascendant, and then you're going to have an eclipse that's going to be in Virgo, and that's going to be happening on the 13th of March. And it looks like this is going to be the 13th? Yeah, it's going to be the 14th, sorry. So it's going to be right around your sun. Hello. So that's going to be in your 6th house of health with the ruler on your ascendant. This, dude, wear a helmet. Be very careful. Like bike riding, skateboarding, driving, anything like this. Be very careful with your health here because the retrograde is right on your ascendant. Could this be bringing you a job? Could it be bringing you back to work? Yeah, 100%. That could happen too. But this retrograde is very colorful. I wonder if you're going to shave your head, because Aries is about being bold. So I wonder if you're going to cut your hair short, or if there's going to be something where you're like, oh, I got to shave, I got to clean up, I've got a job, you know, something that you're having to kind of like quickly get something together. And that eclipse will be right on your sun. So that's also indicating there's going to be potentially a change with a job as well. Then you're going to have the second eclipse, which is going to be in Aries. And, oops. Here we go. We'll just do this. And that'll be here, right on your ascendant, and that'll be on March 29th. And that's with the moon. With Mars direct, you're moving. So if you haven't figured out a solid living situation yet, or you've been trying to figure out where you're going to stay, this eclipse makes you feel like you're going to move, or it's pushing you to kind of move into a new phase, or you're reconnecting maybe with family, or you're getting situated somewhere. And even the Mercury retrograde tells me that there's a change going on with your schedule of some kind. You know, once again, pay attention to your health with that retrograde. And this is all preemptive before Saturn and Neptune go into Aries, where then you're like, oh, I'm working for myself, or I'm more focused on my health, or I'm quitting drinking, or, you know, there's some kind of commitment to the body. And Neptune is about having peace. So you're going to be like, I'm good, you know, being on my own and having some space. Now, the eclipse in Pisces, that's going to come in the fall is going to be better for relationships for Virgos. But for an Aries rising, I kind of feel like it's still putting your own oxygen mask on first, focusing on what's going on with you first before you're focusing on relationships. We need to see some strong stuff going on with Venus for relationships. And certainly the Venus retrograde can do that. But I would say you're going to see more relationship action. Mars comes into Leo. You know, there's stuff that's kind of going into Virgo and Libra as you kind of get into the end of summer going into fall. You're going to have to let me know what happens with this eclipse and a retrograde on your ascendant. What year are you in? So you're in a Venus year. So if you're in a Venus year, according to your annual perfections, if you look at your 7th house where you have Mercury, Saturn, and Pluto, the ruler is Venus, and Venus is in the 6th, conjunct the moon. So this tells me that likely what's going to happen when Venus goes retrograde, you'll either get a job or you'll meet somebody through work. You could end up like meeting a girl at work, or it could be somebody that's like a coworker, because Venus is at a 10 in the 6th. Working with older women in some way, or working with, you know, care of some kind, or property care, management, you know, something detail oriented. And this is probably going to be bringing up the theme of women who want to like nurture you or help you or assist you in some way. And as Venus crosses your ascendant, somebody will be like, oh my God, you bumped your head. Like, let me clean that up for you. And you're like, who is this nurse? Like, you know, something really significant like that. Women who want to like help you or cater to you will definitely kind of come up. And Venus is conjunct your moon, and the moon's the ruler of the north node. Start looking for property management jobs, or homesteading, pet sitting, dog walking. I mean, I don't know what you got going on, but something like that is going to bring you money, or it's going to bring you support or resources from other people. But circle back and let me know what happens with that retrograde, because between the retrograde and the eclipse, it's like it's all over your chart. There's about to either be some change to your luck, especially when it comes to relationships and money, or there's going to be some kind of change with your appearance, okay? Trust me, wear a helmet. Don't be rushing places. Take your time. Watch out for burns, cuts, all that stuff. All right, we got Matthew, Megan, and then we're going to be doing a synastry reading for Gabby and Keith. All right, so let's look at Matthew. What's up, Matthew? How's it going? Matthew says, my birthday is April 27th, 1999 at 9:43 a.m. All right. Any interpretations of my birth chart you can tell me in general can be helpful. My 5th house is an absolute mess. So any advice on how to handle those energies? I think I have good aspects at least, but I'm juggling a lot of stuff, moving back home to save money, wanting to go back to school, etc. So any advice astrologically on this time? Your 5th house is a mess, huh? Well, how do you figure your 5th house is a mess? Because Mars is there in opposition to Saturn and your sun? You know, hey, Matt. Why do you think your 5th house is a mess? The ruler is Venus. Venus is in the 12th, and it opposes Pluto. I mean, that could be part of it. You definitely have a lot of oppositions in this chart. That's something for sure. In fact, almost everything you have has some kind of opposition from what I can see. You know, moving back home, making those changes. I mean, you've had a South Node eclipse that happened in the fall. That could have brought you back home. I think as a Cancer rising, if you have Saturn and Neptune and the North Node in Pisces, you're supposed to be going back to school. And the South Node just hit your moon, so you returned back home, right? Changes with home and living situation, you know, that can always kind of come up with eclipses in Virgo in the future. I mean, you know, I don't think your 5th house is a mess. I think your 5th house Lord is challenged, because the 5th house is taking risks, gambling, speculative stuff, dating, you know, it's literally taking chances. So having Libra on the 5th house cusp, in my opinion, is not bad. It means you can actually have lots of opportunity for romance, but the ruler is in the 12th, so it's hard to, like, Venus in the 12th doesn't always see that there can be people who like them, or they find it hard to connect with other people and be vulnerable and put themselves out there. And then on top of that, the ruler of the 5th opposes Pluto and Juno. So it can feel like relationships are challenging. It's difficult. There's power struggles. It can be scary. You know, people can get kind of crazy or controlling. And Venus in Gemini needs flexibility, versatility. In the 12th house, it needs like romance. So I feel like there can be this tendency to idealize partners when you have Venus in the 12th house. And your Venus also trines the South Node and Uranus. So certainly that means you're no stranger to being like, people come, people go. You know, they're here and then they're not here. And when you look at Mars in the 5th house, it opposes the Sun and Saturn. Okay, and Saturn rules relationships. So you're like, you know what? You know, partners will come and go, but good friends are hard to come by. And that's literally your Sun, Saturn in the 11th house, that you need to be strongly socially acclimated, and you need to have people that support you, and you can't lose yourself in relationships, right? At least in my opinion. Don't underestimate Mars in its domicile. Mars in Scorpio is very strong. Not so friendly with the Sun opposition and Saturn opposition. It can definitely feel like there can be some tension, maybe in communicating, you know, love and values when it comes to relationships between romantic partners and friends, or defining the difference between, are we together or are we kind of like in a complicated, you know, situationship. The best advice I can give you for your transits is, while Saturn and the North Node are in Pisces, you know, technically it's in your 10th house already. So it's like, what do I want to be when I grow up? What am I doing from a whole sign perspective? You're going to school. And with the North Node in your 9th house, an eclipse in your 3rd house, you are going back and reevaluating what you've learned about education. And you're like, I need to get something that's going to be more tangible, or something that's like a higher level, or a degree, or a certification. And you'll probably be in the midst of doing that in March and April. And then you're going to be seeing that, you know, you're going to continue to have eclipses in the whole sign 9th house in Pisces for a little bit longer. So actually all the eclipses will be full moons in Pisces. So that's also gearing you towards getting some kind of certification or training. And then finally Saturn and Neptune will move into Aries. And I kind of feel like 2026, 2027, as Saturn and Neptune are coming into Aries, is going to be more prominent for your career and your education. So you have some time to kind of figure that out. Don't beat yourself up for going home. I'm not surprised with some of your transits. The North Node hit your 4th house Lord, and then, you had a retrograde through there, and then the South Node hit your moon. I think it was perfect timing, to be honest with you. I think that if this were me, I would be tracking the lunar transits. If you're a Cancer rising, you need to know where the moon is. The new moons, the full moons, get an app that's going to tell you where the moons are. And what do I think about the North Node in Leo and the 2nd house and Pisces midheaven? I think Pisces midheaven is a little bit more challenging for a Cancer rising, because it means that it has to be something spiritual or artistic or creative, or maybe you're working in a private place. But the ruler of that is Jupiter, and you've got Jupiter in the 10th, conjunct Mercury. This means that, when you go back to school and you get an education, it's going to help give you the confidence and also the direction with your career. Now, Jupiter Mercury is like somebody who's really good with words, or somebody who is very well read, somebody who might be involved in philosophy, travel, law, education, publishing, and this trines your North Node in the 2nd house. A lot of people think just because the North Node's in the 2nd house that you have money. You will accumulate money, sure. I think that this is interesting because the North Node it does not come easily. It's something we have to work to achieve. My astrologer always told me, and I hated it, but she'd always say, well, you have to want what your North Node is. You have to want it, both the house and what it means, and also the ruler. So when we look at your chart, North Node at 19 in the 2nd house means I want to possess a romantic partner. I want love. I want to be wanted. And this is ruled by the sun. Well, look at this. You got the sun conjunct Saturn in the 11th house, which means actually what you're going to find is that what's going to feed you, because this is the 2nd house, what's going to give you that security is having a secure network, groups, affiliations, professional affiliations, solid friends, reliable friends who are going to give you support, give you praise, they've got your back, right? And so that's what's difficult. And then on top of that, not only do you have, the Sun, Saturn kind of square the North Node, it's wide, but you have South Node conjunct the 8th house Uranus, which means you're clearing some karma revolving around, well, money came spontaneously to you in a past life. It may, come spontaneously to you in this life, but this is also friends, which means you're going to have fluctuation and changes with friends, and that's going to impact the way that you feel. So rather than relying on a few people, you want a bigger network, right? A bigger network. Saturn and the Sun in the 11th. Yeah, it's kind of hard when you have the North Node in the 2nd house, because in this lifetime you work for it, and the way that you're going to increase your wealth or your resources or security is going to be committing to your goals, being a part of professional networks, maybe especially people who are going to be really sound when it comes to investments, money, banking, finance. That might be an interest of yours as well. But if you've got Pisces midheaven, Jupiter in the 10th, it's a good placement. Jupiter in the 10th is just strong in general. And your Jupiter trines the North Node, which is very fortuitous. It sextiles Venus, which is really good for money. And it also trines your Pluto. So I don't see this as a chart of somebody who's going to have a difficult time with their career. You're going to feel very mentally motivated and connected to what you're doing for a living. And you'll make money doing it, but you can't lose yourself. You have to stay connected to some kind of community in order to stay like in the know, Interesting. South Node Uranus. I feel so old, like looking at your chart, because I remember when these transits were happening. Also, last question: how difficult would you say my chart is compared to others? Meh. I mean, what matters most in your chart is your moon, in my opinion. And your moon is rather unexpected, which is a good thing. I mean, it's got a sextile to Pluto. It's got a trine to Neptune, so that's really creative and kind of dreamy. You do have Sun quincunx Moon, and they're both in Venusian signs. So, there's some stuff here that kind of talks about overcoming issues revolving around values and resources. Is this the most challenging chart I've seen? No, not by any means. South Node Uranus is kind of interesting. I feel like this is like you got to kind of like lose your mind a little bit in order to, or shake things free, or really embrace that sense of like, okay, well, that's over, next, you know, especially when it comes to changing circumstances with like money or like with friendships. But yeah, I've seen, I guess I would say much worse, but this is not as challenging maybe as it would seem for you. But you've got like, you know, Saturn on the sun. So, you know, that's not necessarily an easy aspect. Saturn Sun is a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears. There's no candy coating it. Things do not come easy to you. And then that on top of, you've got Saturn in opposition to Mars, and Mars in opposition to the Sun, right? So I would the one advice I would give you looking at this chart is do not compare yourself to other people. That is going to be your biggest hang up if you're doing that. If you're comparing yourself professionally, life-wise, financially, relationship-wise to other people, that's not going to help you, right? That's going to make things difficult. And somebody's talking about fixed signs. You have a lot of planets in fixed signs, which can be very rigid, but it can also be very steadfast and committed. But what's most important is your moon. And I would say go and learn about transit Uranus trine your moon, because that's happening for the next couple of years, which is definitely going to shake things up, especially in the money department. And you're also going to be having transit Pluto trine your moon. So with Uranus and Pluto trining your moon, two outer planets that move very slow is going to actually create an amazing amount of change. You might get some of your education paid for. You're going to save some money living with your parents with Pluto trine your moon. Uranus in the 12th house means that it's also going to really open you up and really get you thinking about how you can be making shifts with education. And probably will make you pretty intuitive as well. You know, you'll have maybe some precognitive dreams and stuff. Hope that helps. I always laugh when people ask me that question. Like, you know, they get on the phone with me and they're like, how bad is it? And when I do see a difficult one, I mean, I'm always the first one to tell somebody, but you guys want to see a scary chart, you should see my chart. It's fucking terrifying. All right, so we've got Megan, and then we're going to take Gabby and Keith, and then we have Amanda, who's doing one for her friend Nicole. Yeah, maybe for fun, one day I'll show you guys my chart. If you haven't seen it, it's on my website. You can see it. It's scary. I have 4 planets in Scorpio, 4 planets in Capricorn. It's like the few astrologers who have looked at my chart, they're like, how are you still alive? And then they're like, oh, you're a control freak. All right, so Megan. I laughed a little bit when I read this message. Megan said, I had a okay, so she's 6'7", I got a reading when I had an eclipse hit my North Node in Aries in 2023. It was insanely accurate. You said May 10th and May 19th changed my life. I'm just wanting to see what you expect this year. All right, so, well, let's take a look. So you're ruled by Saturn. You're going to see Saturn come out of the square with Saturn, Capricorn rising. What do I see this year in a nutshell? Probably my big takeaway is the end of 2024 to 2025. There is some back and forth that's going on revolving around relationships or partnerships, which pretty significant. With Mars retrograde right over your Venus, and Venus and Mars are lovers. So it's like a change in direction where it's like either somebody is coming back or there is some renegotiating or evaluating your relationship, but it's really significant turning points between now and let's say March in relationships in a good way. If something's ending, that means it's ending because something better is coming in and it was meant to be. And if something is being reworked, it can be giving you the opportunity to figure out new home and living dynamics and relationships and how that impacts you. Something else that's significant is you're seeing your chart ruler Saturn hitting your Jupiter. So maybe you have felt like money's a little tight, or you've been maybe kind of concerned about what's going to happen with some financial situations and it's impacting the way that you're thinking and communicating. I would say with Saturn hitting that and then it's going to be over in the next month and you'll have planets retrograde, I see some unexpected wealth that might come your way in March and April. Okay, so there's going to be something that's going to kind of happen around that time where there's going to be like renewal of faith when it comes to your resources, and you're going to feel like, wow, these are good things that are happening. And Jupiter is going through your 5th house this year. And you're going to have a double whammy because Jupiter is about spirituality. It's also about growth. It's about abundance. It's about travel. And Jupiter is going to hit your sun, and then it's going to hit your moon. Okay? This is all ruled by Mercury. So not only is Jupiter going to hit your sun and moon, which means there's a whole new beginning, new cycle coming for you. It could be that you have a new job. It could mean that you have a significant new relationship. 5th house is where we fall in love. With Saturn hitting your Jupiter and with Jupiter hitting your sun and your moon, I would just say be very careful unless you're trying to meet somebody and fall in love. I mean, it could just show up out of the blue. And if you're in a relationship, this could be a time where it's likely you could get pregnant, especially with Mercury retrograding with Saturn. Or maybe there is a turning point going on in relationships where you're realizing that you want more, right? Good for creative projects as well, self-employment. But this is pretty good in the love department. And then right after Jupiter hits your sun, so that looks like that's going to happen in like April, then it's going to hit your moon. So April and May is really interesting. I predict either a new job, a new relationship, or there's going to be a hobby that's taking up a lot of your time, but you enjoy doing it, especially things that are like writing, publishing, podcasting, that kind of stuff. And then the North Node's going to hit your Jupiter, which is going to bring in some more money in May. And then Jupiter's going to go into your whole sign 7th house, and your relationships are actually looking pretty good, especially at the tail end of the summer going into like the fall. Probably I made a lot of the predictions, like you said, about like relationship stuff, or whatever happened with previous eclipses. I would now be focusing on the eclipse that's coming at the end of March, which could change your home or your living situation in some way. It looks like that's connected to relationships, like you've been going back and forth in a relationship about either money or like a house situation. And then you're going to have Saturn and Neptune fully go into your 3rd house like next year. So there's some kind of move on the horizon. And a lot of that looks like it's tied to a relationship with another person and like making those plans together. My relationship back and forth because of money, oddly enough. There you go. Yeah, I mean, see what happens when Mars goes direct. So when Mars is direct and it's back conjunct Venus, I think you'll have a better understanding of what's going to happen in relationships. But there is like a retrograde happening in your money house, which is going to be about having a better understanding of money. And Saturn being there means that you're supposed to be being more conservative or more aware of like where money is being lost or like where it's going. And it can be things that are like subscriptions or, eating out or like drinking and stuff like that. Saturn in the 2nd house, we always kind of tighten the belt a little bit. And be very careful with like auto expenses, buying cars, leasing cars, fixing cars, putting money into cars. That's something else that I would watch, especially in March and April. I wouldn't get a new vehicle. I wouldn't do anything like that. Be very careful. Same thing with gadgets. I wouldn't be doing that with some of the eclipses and like retrogrades that are going to be going on. I was worried about the 2nd eclipse of the year. You told me to hold off till May. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I mean, if you have your own business with Jupiter in the 5th house, things are going to be very good for you. If anything, there could be too much work and you might actually need some help and some assistance in kind of streamlining things and making it a little bit easier to manage, because I think you're going to have a lot of work to do. You're going to be juggling a lot of stuff with Jupiter in Gemini in your whole sign 6th. But relationship stuff in theory should improve, especially with Jupiter on your moon, Anyway, so I hope that that's helpful for you. I always get a good laugh if somebody's like, hey, I haven't seen you for a few years, but everything that you told me happened, so now what? It's funny. All right, so Gabby's got a reading, a synastry reading for her and Keith. And then Amanda's friends and Ariel are after this. So let's see, Gabby. It was this one, right? Yeah. And then Keith, 42867 in Brooklyn. All right, let's get... 4:28:67, 3:05 a.m. Stephanie, you are the last person, girl. Sorry. There is 1, 2, 3, 4 people. Will I be doing reading again soon? Yeah, I'm here every Friday. Astrology won't be for 2 weeks, but tarot will be next week. All right, so we've got Gabby and Keith. All right, 4:22:71 and 4:28:67. We work in the same organization. We have been on and off for 8 years. I feel like we have reached a point of either going to the next level or parting ways. I don't know which way to go. Oh, God. 7 years is a Saturn square, girl. 3.5, you should know. But by 7, you should really know. So you're Cancer rising with the Sun in Taurus and Mars in Capricorn. He's a Pisces rising. See, his transits are very telling. I mean, I get why you guys come together. There's a Venus, Moon, Chiron, first house thing. But when I look at Keith's chart, he's going through South Node transits in the 7th. So, you know, he does have some Libra in the 7th house. So maybe, you know, since I think the fall, there was like an eclipse very close to his Mars. So the issues revolving around the relationships needing to change started coming up. But now that the South Node is hitting his vertex, his Uranus and his Pluto, like people who he's in a partnership with, who he also like works with, like there is some coming apart. It's like something's coming apart at the seams and somebody's like, I'm sick of you not knowing what direction things are going in. And Pluto Uranus retrograde is like, I'm taking the power back. Or, you know, I'm not playing the game anymore. And then he's also got Mars retrograde in his 5th house of dating. So because Mercury rules his 7th, then we have to look at what's going on with Mercury. So for the next couple of months, Mercury and Chiron are going to be in close proximity, which means like he's having to learn how to communicate better and express himself and his needs in relationships. And because this is in conjunct or quincunx, his 7th house, he has a tendency to say one thing and do another. That's kind of the feeling that I get. Or, you know, he'll kind of like do things in relationships, and then when partners get kind of squirrely or they get impatient, like you'll see like a streak to him that's like, don't tell me what to do, you know, and he gets like more kind of like assertive, especially because he's got, you know, Saturn and Mercury in his 1st house. Anyway, my thought is with the eclipse that's coming in his 7th house pretty soon in March, that it's going to be conjunct, you know, the South Node, which is a clearing of relationships, and it's right on top of Pluto Uranus. It's going to be sudden, like the person's going to go, bam, I'm not doing this anymore. And Mercury, which is the ruler, is going to start retrograding conjunct Venus, which means he's going to find himself more kind of on his own, having to reflect on his demeanor, his behavior, his needs, his role in this. And until that's done, I mean, there could definitely be some real fallout. Now, it doesn't have to be on this day. We can see the effects of the eclipse happening a couple weeks early. It can be a couple weeks down the road. But I think between this and also this, I mean, it's telling me it's kind of like he's going through a phase where he's kind of more selfish, Aries. And then now that the North Node's in Pisces, it's, I don't know what I want. I'm lost. I'm kind of confused. I need some space. Let me do my thing, you know, like that kind of stuff. Let me show you down the road with Keith, just so you really get the picture, so you can ask yourself if this is something that you want to do for a year. The second eclipse in March is going to be conjunct his Saturn, which means he's going to have to take responsibility for what he wants, his goals, and his needs. It's a period of self-reflection. I think he might need that in March. And then we get to the fall, and we are going to see in the fall that there is going to be another eclipse, which will be in Virgo in his 7th house in September, which will oppose Saturn and Neptune. Kind of similar vibes as what you're seeing with the one that's going to come in the spring. This will be like, okay, well, guess what? This is what's changing, or this is what direction I'm going in. And when the eclipse comes through, it's going to oppose Saturn and Neptune, which means that he may get somebody to a point where he's been going back and forth with them all year, and then you get to September and they're like, no, I really am done with you. Could happen, especially with the ruler Mercury kind of being in the whole sign 8th house. It's like, okay, well, I need more. You know, he might improve for a little bit, and then it's like, you know, is he actually going to improve more. I don't know. In situations like this, once again, I mean, my go-to, because I can talk about the synastry between the two of you guys and what's going to happen, but I'd much rather just look at the Davidson because it's going to be more accurate. It's going to save me some time. So if I look at your Davidson, Scorpio rising, Sun in Taurus, Moon in Leo, you've had Mars going back and forth over your moon, which is like, are we doing this or not? Are we going to be out there and be together or not? And that's been squaring your Sun. And now Pluto's coming in. So you guys are having all these really intense squares. So I would just go out on a limb here, but like beginning of November and New Year's, was there some intensity going on? Because that's right when Mars was on your moon opposing Pluto squaring the Sun. It's like, we got to change. Something has to change about our dynamic. Where are we going? What are we doing together? What's next? And that's because Pluto's coming in for a square, which rules this chart with the Sun. If we're not committing, if we're not talking about living together, if we're not making moves together, what are we doing? And you're going to see this same energy come up again at the end of April, right when the eclipses have happened, right when the retrogrades have happened, which I think is going to be a significant turning point. And oh, would you look at this? Your guys' Davidson Venus is 10 degrees of Aries in the 6th house where relationships end. Conjunct Chiron where there's wounding. Mercury and Venus are going to retrograde over that. My thought is that I add it all up and I'm like, oh, March and April, it's on like Donkey Kong. That is the real turning point. You guys don't know what the hell you're doing because your North Node's at 29 degrees of Pisces and it's in the 5th house. It's supposed to be really romantic. It's supposed to be really lovey-dovey. It's supposed to be the excess of, you know, Jupiter in the 5th house. Not a secret romance, not things that are being hidden, not non-committal, not knowing what you're doing. You got South Node, Pluto, and Jupiter in the 11th house. It means you guys have been friends before in the past, right? And in this time, it's supposed to be about romance, commitment, long-term stuff, publicly being together, right? So in some ways, I look at this and I'm like, well, if you guys can commit to each other in a serious way with Sun, Saturn in the 7th, it could be good. But Saturn's at a 29, which means other people have to be willing to shake off and let go of their fears of losing their independence. And Venus retrograde in the 6th means that working together and being together may not be a good mix. You know, to have a Scorpio rising chart with Venus in the 6th house, it's like, if you guys work together, you end up like hating each other's guts, you know? I mean, if you're at too close proximity, there can be conflicts, but you guys also fight and then you make up, you know what I'm saying? So there's two sides to this. I think that with Pluto square the Sun over the next year, if you guys aren't talking about settling down, committing, doing Pluto 4th house things, it's going to be really difficult to actually see the fulfillment of a relationship unless you're really talking about, okay, we're going to do the damn thing, especially with living together because you have your Sun at a 4. And how does that work if you guys work together? Pluto's in the 4th and you guys are like, we're building a house. How does that impact the relationship professionally or working together? And also, how do you guys feel about, you know, like living together? I mean, this is very public. You guys would have to be very public about your relationship. And something about this makes me feel like there's been some reluctance to being seen consistently as being like a committed relationship and people knowing that you guys are together, right? The fact that you're going to have a Venus retrograde over your natal Davidson Venus is very telling for me because it's the cycle that you guys have at the midpoint. And that would be the turning point, unfortunately. And you want to watch the next couple of years, Saturn and Neptune are going to hit those placements. So I feel like it's coming to a point of no return with Saturn on your Venus and Pluto square your Sun that you'll get to a point where you're like, no, I'm not going to spend another, you know, couple of years doing this. But let me know. Come back and leave me a comment. Let me know what happens during the retrograde. Very significant. And Venus is at a 10, doing work, right? And 10 years. It might be a 10-year thing. All right. So that was Gabby and Keith. We got Megan. Okay. So now we've got, everybody's bringing their friends in now. We've got Nicole and HT. This is a synastry reading. Let me see if I can find this. And this was through Amanda, but for Nicole. All right, so it looks like this was May 16th, 93. in collaboration with HT, October 1st, 1990. Yeah. Make sure this is right. Can you look at her charts and see if there's any potential to reunite and or marriage? Any guidance? Thanks. Nicole's got Pluto on her ascendant. Ouch. With Mars retrograde over the descendant. So likely, I don't know when you guys split, but since Mars started coming into opposition with Pluto, so in the fall, kind of like October going into November, this was kind of spelling there was going to be something reworked in a relationship, and that Nicole is like, no, something needs to change. Either they need to come back or they need to change something. And he's probably has the perspective that you need to change, because that's what the opposition does. Mars-Pluto is power struggles. Simultaneously, Nicole, Uranus has been on your sun, which means there's been lots of like starts and stops with a relationship or unexpected endings. 4th house in regards to relationships. So that's a double whammy right there. Okay, so when Uranus is off your sun, relationships can stabilize, which is kind of like in the spring. And when this Mars-Pluto opposition is over in April. So after April, kind of going into May, things can improve. Really, I feel like there's a lot of focus in like kind of building yourself up right now with Saturn on your moon and on your North Node. This is a lot about self-esteem, focusing on resources and taking care of yourself. And like you've got a signature in your chart with Mars in your 7th where there can be, you know, conflict and combative energies with partners, and Chiron, which talks about wounds. This opposes Saturn by sign. So you feel like, okay, people hurt me, there's conflicts, we split, we break, and I'm on my own. And that's part of your karma, Saturn in the 1st house of learning to hold your own. And even Saturn squares your sun, which means that there can be a sense of working through karma that's actually connected to your family karma. You know, men in particular, with the sun being there, father figures, brothers, boyfriends, and feeling like it's a challenge dealing with some of these relationships and kind of building like that firm foundation to be in a relationship and kind of live together. And that's all that you want. If you have a Pisces moon, Taurus sun, you're like, I just want stability, I want peace, you know? But unfortunately, your partners don't really bring peace, and they can be a little headstrong or a little bossy if you've got Sun conjunct Mercury. So that being said, if we look at HT, he's a Pisces rising, which means he's going through South Node eclipses in his 7th. And there's about to be an eclipse on his Mercury, which means that somewhere around mid-March when the eclipse comes in and the retrograde, it's going to be about whether or not you go back to him and you try to talk to him and reconcile. And I think he's going to be a little mousy, and I think he's going to be a little unsure about communicating because the planets are going to be in Pisces. It might take him a little bit to kind of come around. You guys have some karma in your chart. And when I say karma, it's neither good nor bad. It's just neutral. South Node Mars. Well, at first with these relationships, there's a lot of sex, there's a lot of chemistry, there's a lot of traction, but it evolves into kind of being like, okay, when that wears off, we just fight, because Mars is about conflict, it's about war. So you guys either fought against each other or you went into battle against each other, something happened in the past, and so that's materializing as there being conflicts in communication and also in the home base. So there's drama there. His Jupiter's on your Venus and your Sun, you know, which I think, your Jupiter is on Venus and Sun, so it's good for him in terms of partnerships, but there's some difficulty in communication here. And you guys both have Mars South Node both ways. So, I mean, I don't know what the conflict has been like, but, you know, I see it in your guys' charts, and that can be really hard to work out. That's not necessarily something that kind of goes away. Marriage, I mean, I think you would be a good partner for him with Jupiter in his 7th. And also you've got Juno conjunct Chiron, so you can help heal wounds revolving around relationships. But Saturn and the moon is very close, and usually the moon person, which is him, will eventually grow distant and emotionally detached from the Saturn person because they can feel like they're too heavy. And you got a Pluto-Juno conjunction, so that's not always the easiest for marriage. Once again, I'm going to go back to my Davidson and tell you what's really going to happen. So in this chart, you guys have Sun conjunct Saturn in Aquarius, and Pluto is right on your Sun. And Pluto is the destroyer. So knowing that Pluto is right on your composite Sun, right here, means that it's destroying It's destroying the relationship and clearing the karma. That's what's happening. And it'll be the most intense when Mars comes back into an opposition with us. So that's going to be March going into April. And then the finale is the eclipse, which will be before that, which is going to be right on your moon in your south node, which is clearing of the decks, really saying no. Probably sometime March into April, it's like, no, we're really done, you know? And you may try to connect with him and communicate with him, but it's like there's been either so much stuff that's been said or there's been realization that both parties have taken. It's going to be hard to maintain this relationship with Pluto on your sun for the next year. That's going to be very hard to do. Very hard to do. I believe that anything is possible, but when you've got Pluto hitting your 7th house, relationship lord, south node hitting your moon in the 7th house of relationships, and your chart ruler, Uranus, is now going to be trining Pluto in the sun. It's actually wanting you guys to have conversations and have closure. I think that's really what this is doing. When could there be a potential for things to be better? Okay, could. Because you guys are still going to have issues if you try to make it work this summer. I don't really see that coming together. I think that this, to me, looks like there would potentially be better likelihood of things timing-wise, or you guys would be out of some of these more tricky transits. Fall of 2026. There will actually be a retrograde that will happen in end of 2026 into 2027. That could bring you guys back together. You know, if you're open to that, or if the universe kind of realigns, you may realign during that time. But these transits are going to be very hard to kind of navigate. And I see it through both of your guys' charts. As much as I hate to say that, I'm going to tell you the truth. And I think for him, it's because there's going to be a real challenge with communication. And for you, it's because there's a lot more going on that's kind of saying you're clearing something out with this retrograde where other people are not willing to kind of make changes in their demeanor. And Pluto coming into your 1st house is like, no, I got to do what I got to do, whatever is going to be best for me. This hasn't been working for me, right? And even Uranus on your sun is like, man, there's no stability. So if you're kind of like, let's get together, let's make it work, like, let's get married, that's not going to fix things. That's not going to fix things, as much as I hate to say that. So watch what happens in February, March, and April, and you'll see what I'm talking about. If you try to connect with him, he may be like a little distant. Sorry, I wish I could tell you something better, but I kind of see it in several of the charts. Definitely report back. I wanna hear what happens. Okay, so we've got Ariel and Stephanie. Am I missing anybody? I don't think so. All right, so let's take a look here, Ariel. So looks like your info is, okay, so 10/23/1990, and that was in Huntington, New York. Hi, Candace. I had a rough 2024. 3 injuries back to back and still healing. My routines and career plans have been uprooted, so I feel a bit lost. I'm open to new beginnings in both love and career. I want to see what you see for me in these areas. I have a big work crush on a Sun, Sag, Moon, Leo rising. Huge fan of your videos. Well, thank you. Well, I'm sorry to hear about the injuries. To me, could be a combination of, Saturn still being in your 6th house, but this is a good example of whole sign. So whole sign chart, Virgo rising, her north node would be in the 6th house. And Pluto is in conjunction to her north node, which basically means that it's totally throwing off everything in regards to her health, creating some kind of crisis with health, habits, and routine, and trying to heal. Simultaneously, Mars is in her whole sign 12th house of healing and resting and recuperating, and it's opposing this. So it's like, you're like, I have a lot of time to like rest, recuperate, reflect on things. And also Pluto coming into the 5th house, hitting the north node can be a little boy crazy, having an obsession, a fixation with somebody that you work with, right? Because it's your whole sign 6. So that's a good example of whole sign astrology kind of being accurate for once. Love-wise, North node's in your 7th house for the better part of the next year. So that's going to be bringing in relationship opportunities. It's conjunct Neptune, so we can idealize people, see what we want to see, but it can also bring people in where you can have a really strong connection and draw to. Saturn's going to hit that, which can be about commitments to somebody or interest in somebody through work. Capricorn, right? It's connected to Capricorn or somebody who's younger. Saturn is the ruler of the 5th house of true love. So, you know, with a chart like this, things are going to heat up when you see something going on, obviously, with Venus and Saturn. So Venus has been in conjunction to Saturn, so it's been there, but it's going to retrograde back, which makes me feel like it's going to be about kind of getting clarity March and April. Like, are they interested in me as much as I'm interested in them? What's going on here? You know, can we work something out? Are we kind of going in the direction of maybe having something? Nothing will be clear until the second half of April, okay? For all of my Virgo risings, my Libra risings, I don't care who you meet. I'm already meeting some of you guys in sessions who are like, it's the most amazing person ever. It's going to be great. And I'm sitting there going like, oh my God, you know? And then they call me and they're like, holy shit, I just found out he just got out of prison. I'm like, hello, like Pisces, you know, or he's got a drug problem or an alcohol problem. I'm not saying that that's going to be the case for you. I'm just saying that because your descendant is at a 19, it's going to be about whether or not they're indecisive, if they're wavering, if they're going to be kind of flirty and playing games, or if they're going to be kind of committal or non-committal. And when you get out of the retrograde, which will be the latter part of April, you know, we're coming out of the shadow, then you're going to have more clarity about relationships. I need to see something going on with Jupiter. And in your case, it's pretty strong because Jupiter is in your 10th house, so it can expand your career and your relationships. And Jupiter is going to trine your Venus, bring you more money, more stability in relationships, and it's also going to trine your sun. So it's also going to be good for improvement of your finances, feeling more secure, feeling more also like wanted. Like I feel like Libra in the 2nd house is like you need to feel wanted, right? So all of these things are good things. Maybe Saturn square your moon is a little bit of a difficulty in balancing, you know, home life and relationships and feeling like, okay, well, I have stuff I'm dealing with, or I'm dealing with some health issues and it's delaying my ability to be as active or connected or committed in relationships. I would go and learn about Pluto on your North Node. I think that's going to be making you a little boy crazy, to be honest. And you do have to watch your health. If you're having health issues and it's picking up the energy of your whole sign 6th house, then it's like, yeah, you know, and if health issues continue, obviously we hope they don't, Pluto conjunct the North Node can be talking about issues pertaining to money, you know, at a 2. So it's financial issues, expenses. This is also the impact that health issues have on you mentally. And 6th house is accidents, and Pluto's connected to your 3rd house. So driving accidents. I don't know what health issues you've had. You know, the 6th house can be about digestion. It can be about nervous system. It can be about anything connected to the calves and the ankles. That's more Aquarius. And then the 3rd house ruler, Mars, can be about damages and stuff to your shoulders, your arms, your hands. So I don't know what health stuff you've got going on. I'm not seeing anything other than that. And Pluto is squaring your Mercury, and that's your chart ruler. So if Pluto's going into your whole sign house, which is going to create health crisis, and it's squaring your Mercury, do you mind me asking what happened? Like, was it a vehicle issue, or is there something that is impacting your nervous system? That's a pretty gnarly square. Pluto on the North Node square Mercury. Yikes. And that is in your whole sign 3rd house. So I wonder what it is that you may have potentially damaged. You know, this next eclipse is going to be on your ascendant with a retrograde. And this might actually be about going and seeing like a naturopath or like a holistic healer or somebody who can do some kind of water therapy. So I don't know if that's been recommended to you, but that might be something that you're considering. Anyway, I hope that that's helpful. Sending you lots of good healing vibes. Just holy shit, man. Like you've had Pluto square your Venus, Pluto square your Sun, now Pluto square your Mercury. This has been one hell of like a last couple of years for you. I know you got Saturn square your Moon. I think the beauty of all these retrogrades and planets in the 7th house of the North Node is it's about letting people help you. And I've said to a lot of my Virgo risings, you guys are so quick to fix other people's problems and jump into things and want to correct things and want to help and provide solutions that part of the eclipses in the North Node in the 7th is really putting you in a position of having to go, hey, you know what? Actually, I don't have all the answers, or I'm sick, or I'm hurt, or I need a therapist, or I need an astrologer. Like, help me because I don't have answers for what's going on right now. And you're going to get some people that are going to be really helpful and sensitive and intuitive, and then you're going to have other people who are going to be kind of crazy. So you got to be careful whose advice you buy, mine's included. I had a foot injury. That's Pisces. So that's more Saturn in your 6th. A herniated disc, that's more your back. So that's more Mars in opposition to Pluto. Mars in Leo is back issues and inflammation with the discs. And now it's causing nerve pain in my arms and foot issues. Okay, so that's the Aquarius nerve issues. And most recently a bad concussion. I'm so sorry to hear about all of this stuff. Certainly, Mars opposed Pluto is not screwing around in your chart. You know, it is not screwing around. So I don't know, maybe go back, make a note of the dates that this happened. Mars and Pluto were in opposition around Halloween and then right around New Year's. So if there's any correlation to those dates when there were things that were happening, you need to pay attention because it's going to come back and it's going to do it again. And that's going to be taking place like around the end of April. Let's say like the 20th through the 30th, just to be safe. And this is pretty potent in your chart, babe, because it's also squaring Mercury, your chart ruler. Okay, so you can see that there can be an uptick in some like health issues. You're more prone to having these problems, but then it's going to kind of clear out a little bit. But this is after there's an eclipse on your ascendant. Very interesting. I almost feel like it's weird. It's weird, but I'm just going to say this. I feel like Pisces in the 7th house, like it would be good to like go and get like a clearing, like go and get like a blessing, go and get like Reiki, or go and get somebody who will do like some kind of spiritual protection, prayer, cleanse, something that's going to like, I mean, like clear out the juju of the stuff that you're dealing with, especially right around the time that the retrogrades and the eclipses are happening. Obviously, don't get like scammed. I'm not saying go and spend a bunch of money, but if you find somebody that you trust that can do that, that can even do like an egg clearing, or they give you like a ritual bath, or they'll pray over you and do some Reiki. I mean, it can be good for removing some of this stuff so you're not getting hit so hard. But Pluto square your chart ruler, Pluto on the North Node with a Mars-Pluto opposition, like the good news is this is almost like the finale of all the Pluto transits you've been through for the last couple of years. But my God, woman, you're tough. Sending you lots of good healing vibes. All right, we got Stephanie. Stephanie. Let's see. You are the real OG. So I've got you here. June 25th, 86, 11:58 p.m. in Whittier. I got you, girl. All right. She says, what's up? I'm hoping for general read of the current energies coming up for me. Possible career avenues and new relationships keep coming up for me. Thanks. Okay. I mean, there was a lot of potential things shifting in regards to career stuff, but that was like up in the air at the end of the year. It was kind of like November, December. Obviously, Jupiter is the ruler of your career house. And so part of what you're going to be seeing is Saturn's coming into conjunction with Jupiter. So the next like 2 months, it's going to be about committing to new beginnings in regards to your professional life. And I actually feel like mid-March through about May is when this is going to happen. Many opportunities coming to you because the eclipses are going to be also a retrograde in your first house. So if you have connected with new work contacts, if you've met new people romantically, if you're trying to kind of get your name out there, that retrograde is going to bring people back in, and it's going to help you have really strong negotiating power financially at the end of March going into April. You've also got Jupiter that's going to come into conjunction with your sun this year. So that's going to be very good because it brings you joy, it brings you abundance. Sometimes it can bring us a little bit of chub. So be mindful of that. Jupiter trine the ascendant, Jupiter on the sun. That could be a pregnancy transit too. If you're not looking for it, watch out. And then Jupiter is going to go into the 5th house, which can be good for self-employment, creativity, children, dating. And Jupiter is about bringing the attention to you and being seen and being like visible, right? So something revolving around what I'm creating, what I'm doing, my business, you know, what I love. And if you have kids, then it's just more focused on those kids. And if not, then it could be definitely picking up the energy of dating, which is probably not really on the agenda with the South Node eclipses in your 7th. Or if you're in a relationship, there's more focus on yourself. But this is actually going to be good for dating and relationships with Jupiter coming into your 5th house. And then Jupiter hitting on your Mercury. That'll be 2025 into 2026. I would say with a chart like this, the focus is more on really reevaluating something about your appearance in the spring, taking really good care of your health, building on your self-esteem, negotiating finances, making some new directions in your career. And then as you're coming into April and May, it's going to be more like money stuff and like committing more seriously to your resources and like, you know, investing in yourself or being more concrete maybe about budgeting. And then Jupiter coming into your 5th house is definitely going to be really good for dating and romantic relationships. That North Node's on your ascendant. And so I would say really until about July, August, there's a real emphasis on your body and your appearance. Maybe even a little bit later here. Hold on. Maybe until actually about October, November. So the North Node, Saturn and Neptune, it does make you like a little bit more self-focused, or there is like this sense also of like daydreaming and idealizing more, right? And then Jupiter's going to trine your moon. It's going to sit on your sun. Maybe think back to what happened 12 years ago, the last time you had this transit. So that was in what, 2013? That was the last time Jupiter went through Cancer. What happened that year? Was that a significant year for dating? Was there a new creative business that came about? Like what happened? Because you're going to see something very similar happen again, especially with the North Node conjunct Jupiter, trine Jupiter. Watch for relationships from the past coming back or people who you've worked with. So put all of your meetings out there, have all your conversations, chat with people, do all of that stuff, and then wait for people to come back to you in March and April is kind of like my advice. And watch your health, things in regards to your feet, Pisces, your immune system, all of that stuff. Okay, so there you go. I got married in 2012, and then your daughter was born in 2013. So the last time you had this transit, you had a baby. Right? 5th house. Jupiter's your chart ruler and it's on the sun, it's on Mercury and it's in your 5th, like you were going to have a kid. So, you know, new things happening for maybe your daughter, right? Maybe it's going to be that, you know, you're focusing on hanging out with her more. There's more positive, you know, opportunities for travel or things revolving around her education that's kind of coming up. But you will prioritize and find more joy with your children, with your hobbies, and also with like dating and romance during that transit. Be very careful making any significant changes with your finances or with your personal style in March and April. I wouldn't do that. I would wait till May. Wait until these energies flush out because you're going to have your finances more in order and you're also going to have a better idea of like what changes you're wanting to make and how you're going to be presenting yourself in like in a professional way, in my opinion. Possible career avenues. And then, you know, down the road, you're going to have another turning point with career stuff at the end of the year. So there will be like a Mercury retrograde that's going to start in Sagittarius and it'll go retrograde conjunct Mars. So if you don't make any changes now, which I think a lot of opportunities will come your way, you're definitely going to have an opportunity, let's say from mid-November to the end of November when Mercury goes retrograde and it conjuncts Mars and it squares the nodes, that by the end of the year, you are making a shift in regards to your career. But it's not a lateral one, it's like a bigger one, you know? I mean, health is a big thing. If you have Saturn conjunct your chart ruler, there is definitely either memory issues or you're really sleepy or it's hard for you to kind of feel present because Jupiter, you know, in Pisces is kind of like out of the body. So grounding and sleep is really important with Saturn conjunct Jupiter. And likely when you have the eclipse in mid-March with retrogrades in the 1st, you may be actually getting some feedback about your health and you might be getting some information right around the 3rd week of March when you see Sun conjunct Venus and Mercury. This is about getting news from a doctor, maybe seeing a new specialist, and it might also be about making some changes with what you're consuming because Aries is what you're consuming. Specifically in regards to like, are you getting enough iron? Do you need to be eating more meat? Is there going to be something you're cutting out of your diet? Are you trying to do anti-inflammatory? Are you trying to make sure you're eating a diet that's going to be lower in heavy metals, right? Like that kind of stuff. That's kind of the stuff that I'm seeing in your chart. So it might be beneficial knowing that Mars is retrograde already in your whole sign 6th, that when you see a nice aspect with the moon, so I would say anytime from the end of January to mid-February when you have a full moon in your 6th, to go and actually speak with a specialist or talk to somebody and try to get some insight. They may run some tests then and then come back and give you some feedback at the beginning of March about what you need to change, and then you would actually make some changes to your health. That will very likely happen with retrograde in your first and then Mars going back into your sixth, sometime between, I would say, March and May. But Saturn will leave the conjunction to Jupiter, and you're going to have Jupiter square your Jupiter and then trine. So in theory, I would say, I mean, health stuff could really improve from about May on if you're working with a different practitioner. And it's also more dietary kind of involved, in my opinion. Hopefully that helps. Well, that's it for me, guys. This is everybody for the evening. If I got a chance to read for you, thank you so much for hanging out with me, spending your Friday with me. I'm always here Fridays at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That's going to be 4 o'clock on the Pacific Coast and 7 o'clock Eastern. Next week will be tarot. Do me a favor and like the video. Give me a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe. I will catch you guys back here next week for tarot. And make sure you check out my February horoscopes. Head over to my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. I teach astrology. I will teach you everything I know. I have Astro 101 for beginners, Astro 201 if you want to learn techniques like me, and if you want to learn how to make predictions. I'd love to be your teacher. You can find all of that, including all of my products, calendars, and my personal sessions at beyondtheveiltarot.com. Until next time, I'll catch you guys all back here very soon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care.